Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 349. Wow. We're getting to another kind of milestone of 350 next week. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun, who has AIDS right now. Chris.
Yeah.
How are you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, I caught me some typhoid.
Oh, you got the typhoid fever.
No, I got a flu and bronchitis combo. Like, it was crazy.
I got bronchitis.
I can't even do that. I can't even do that now.
Who was that? That was Sweet. Was that Sweet Brown? No, that was someone else, I think. Remember that? That was a
No, it wasn't Sweet Brown.
It was some other elderly black woman on a news thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's I've never had bronchitis in my life. Shit's crazy.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this was even possible. I was like, no wonder people died from this like a long time ago. Like, I would have just done it myself. Like, there were points where I was like, I don't need to keep doing this.
Right.
That happened to this turns this really dark. Didn't like the CEO of like Texas Roadhouse kill himself during COVID because of that?
Is that real?
I'm pretty sure that's a real story.
That's
Texas.
That's amazing
Roadhouse
lore. If that's
suicide. True. Texas Roadhouse founder. This is from NPR. Texas Roadhouse founder Kent Taylor dies after struggle with post-COVID symptoms.
Yeah, that could have been you.
Died
Chris.
by suicide at 65.
Could have been me. I thought
still time actually.
There's still time. I really thought it was COVID at first because like things started to taste different and I was like, oh shit, that sucks. This is like the worst thing ever. Like, I would almost rather die than have everything taste. And I was like tasting everything that I used to like, and I'm like, oh, now this tastes weird, and so I don't know. It sucks.
Oh my God, he's dying.
Yeah. I'm dying.
Now,
I'm dying, George.
I can feel comments now. Right before we started recording, Colin said, Chris, you don't have to do this. But he had a gun pointed at the screen at the same time.
Yeah.
So take that as you will. Or he like held up like $100. Like, you don't have to do it,
$100.
$100.
He gets paid a lot more than this.
Yeah.
That do this show.
No. I volunteered to do it because I think I can. It's just I probably will talk a little bit less if that's okay with the audience. But just I don't know. This is the best day that my voice has had in a couple days, so I think I should be relatively fine. Like, I'm capable of it. It's
all
just,
right.
It just sucks.
Call the ambulance, but not for me.
No, man. I'm still wearing. I just realized I still have. I didn't even take this off. The little hospital band you can't see.
Yeah, there it is.
It's a little souvenir.
It's got your name and your details on it.
Yeah, it's got my social security number. It's got my.
Yeah, put that up on the camera.
Yeah, here you go. Take it.
Dustin Furman, executive producer. Good to see you. You're coming in a little hot. I feel like you might want to.
A little hot?
Yeah, a little. I mean, you could see the waveform is peaking a little bit.
I doubt it.
Okay.
We'll see.
That's fine.
We'll see.
Whatever pleases you.
You don't understand what I can do in Premiere. I can really.
I understand what you can do.
Mend these things.
But I think it is true that you want to come in lower than higher.
That is probably true.
Yeah,
it's probably true.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you, my friend. How are you today?
I have a little story for you guys about a little experience I had this morning. So, as you guys know, I've been having the fixation on 3DS stuff. And I've always thought I want the Galaxy new 3DS. I've always thought it was cool. So I decided to bite the bullet. Bought one on eBay. Little concerning because the seller had no feedback. And I thought, don't want to get scammed on this. But to my understanding, eBay does a better job protecting buyers than sellers. So I went for it. This morning, before I even woke up, it arrived at my door. And here's the advice for all you out there. When you buy something on eBay, especially a system, just get a little rubbing alcohol, maybe a Clorox, some kind of safe, maybe not a Clorox wipe, but something that you can desanitize it. So I wiped it down, and here it is. Looks real good.
Yeah.
So I open it up. He hacked it. There's like a bunch of games on it or whatever. I had to look though. I went.
Oh no!
I looked at the web browser.
Oh boy!
This was a Gooner 3DS, dude. It was a Gooner 3DS.
Boy.
And
oh my
big
God.
fan of Latina Deep Throat.
Oh geez. Well, who isn't?
So also various other professional actresses, listed in the search. So my job later today, I mean, it's been cleaned on the outside, and this is why I said clean it before you start messing around with it. Just wipe it down, a little rubbing alcohol, careful with the screens, maybe not the alcohol on the screens, but just give it a little once over. You never know who had your Galaxy new 3DS before you.
Oh.
So I'm going to wipe it. I'm going to wipe it later.
You should have gotten DNA off of it and then submitted it to like 23andMe, and you could have figured out at least the person's family.
Yeah.
Would have been a fun and unnecessarily robust exercise.
Well, aside from the gooning, it is kind of an interesting experience when like this has all of his games on it that he chose to download. So I'm looking, I'm like, oh, he's got multiple Street Fighter games on here. He's got a few Mario games. Like, who was he as a gamer?
Who is he? Yeah.
What was he into? What did he like? He liked Minecraft. So, because it came with a Minecraft on card and he has it installed on here. So, and we know about his gooning habits as well.
You have a blacklight? You should hold it up to it and see if there's anything left. I have a blacklight.
My friend does. My friend has like a really powerful blacklight that he has it, like he takes it everywhere he goes and he just kind of shines it on things like just randomly. Makes my other friend Brandon really uncomfortable because he's germaphobe. But so maybe I'll have him look at it. It's probably wiped. I mean, I knew that.
It's fine.
You never know, especially with 3DS owners. These are Nintendo fans. Of course, they're gooning on their 3DS.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Another thing to consider here. No gooner games on the 3DS. So we might call him a traditionalist of gooning.
Right.
There was no like anime games, no Senkagura or whatever that shit's called. None of that. I guess he wouldn't be a traditional gooner. I guess he'd be a classical gooner.
Classical, right.
Yeah, because traditional, you would expect the anime stuff.
Right.
So classical gooner, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm good. Just hanging out.
Like 500 years ago, people were gooning, no doubt, but to what exactly? They didn't see anything. Like they might have seen like one attractive person in their entire life. Mm-hmm. There was no pictures, no video. I don't know, man.
That's crazy to conceptualize. Yeah.
Yeah. Like think about what they were seeing. Like if you lived in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, what were you seeing that would make you horny?
A lot of things.
Answer the question.
A lot of things that shouldn't probably.
There's in the little bit of KCD I played, there's like the farmer's daughter. She's all right.
Yeah.
What's Micah doing though in that game? Did she make her Henry gay? Or
I think she did.
Gay? Why are you gay?
Why are you gay?
Why are you gay? Well,
that's that black guy. How's that make you feel, Colin? Right? Yeah. Why are you gay? That was funny.
Why are you gay?
What did you say, Dustin?
How's that make you feel?
It's fine. It's all role playing. I mean, I have a little joke with her where I pretend where I'm like, oh, because she was playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and we talk to the dogs constantly. So I'm like, oh, Rush, Mike, your mother's leaving me for another man. And she's like, I am Henry. Like, I am Henry. I'm like, oh, okay, I understand.
Right.
So yeah, no, it's okay. I don't know that I've ever gone the gay relationship route in a game where that was an option, to be honest.
Right.
But,
yeah.
Because I'm deeply homophobic. So I don't want to go down that road, but obviously I'm not. Okay. Well, we're here together. You have your new 3DS.
Yep.
Chris has got typhoid fever.
Mm-hmm.
And we are doing the best that we can do here in this life and so on. I'm trying to lean back more. Maybe I should give myself less headroom. Because I'll tell you, my back still hurts even though I've changed chairs. It's definitely, I think I figured it out actually. And which is why I'm trying. I think it's always my right shoulder, like my back up here for years. And I thought at first it was because I was leaning with this microphone, and so I moved the microphone closer to me a couple of years ago. But I actually think it's me holding onto my mouse, like while I'm just talking to you guys, because I'm going to the next story, I'm clicking a link, I'm doing that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to just be, like this.
Yeah,
right.
Like this, and hope that it helps, because the pain's pretty bad sometimes. And it's never permanent. It goes away every time. I mean, it's got happened hundreds of times, which is strange. And it goes away, but it hurts if I sit here for too long.
I have to say, I don't think there really is a good chair. I feel like there are chairs that are really bad for you and chairs that aren't that bad.
Right.
But like, I don't know if I've ever sat in a chair that was like, oh, I love sitting in this forever. You know?
You're
like
right.
That's an office chair anyway. Like I've sat on recliners that I could pass away in.
Oh my God. Yeah. I have a lazy boy recliner downstairs. I live in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right in the sense that like I was expecting a chair to revolutionize my life.
No.
And now that I'm 3 chairs in, I just don't think, this is the seminal revolutionary chair that I'm sitting in now.
Right.
And it's not doing the trick. And now I have these other chairs just sitting in my fucking house. Like I have my original office chair, which is really nice. Like it was $1,000 plus like leather office chair. That's in my garage now. And I sit in it when I smoke joints. And then,
hell yeah.
And then I have the gamer chair. That was definitely the worst of the 3.
Yeah, they're terrible.
I don't know why I bought that thing, but then I'm like, oh, maybe I should give it to someone in my family. Maybe someone will want it. But then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll want it later. So now it's just sitting in my loft area up here.
Throw it out.
Or give it away.
No, don't give it away. That's just passing off the mediocrity to somebody. They're such terrible chairs. I have never sat in a gamer chair that was. They're all so bad. I don't understand like what the gaslighting campaign they ran was, where it's just like, look at how this is the chair you got to have if you're a gamer or whatever. Like it just became synonymous somehow.
Yeah, paid shills on Twitch and other places.
So lame.
Yeah, keeping it going. So anyway, I don't know, man. I mean, I got to keep it on. Maybe I have to retire soon because I can't sit in this fucking chair anymore. Or I should just do it I should lay on the couch back here. That'd be awesome.
We can
probably fall asleep. I'd probably fall asleep 20 minutes into the show. Be over.
I thought about setting up. I thought about setting up the mic in my room, like in bed, sick with like a fake thermometer. But I was like, that's too much. It's too much effort.
That's a bit. Then you're making it into a bit at that point.
And for like, that's fine for like 10 minutes, but for 4 hours of a news show, it's probably
you're wearing like the Scrooge like sleeping cap,
right? You got like that red water bottle thing that remember like in old cartoons, they put hot water in it.
Yeah.
Might need that.
Mm-hmm. Little beeps in the background.
All right. Well, it's good to be here with you guys. It's good to be here with all of you out there as well. Hope all is well in your lives. Sacred Symbols. What is this? Sacred Symbols, right?
Yeah.
A PlayStation podcast. And as we said, it's our 349th episode. You can support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Early ad-free access like more than 13,000 of you do. And we appreciate you very much. $5 a month is the sweet spot. Get early ad-free access to every episode of this show. You get early ad-free access to every episode of every show in our network done by other people. You also get Sacred Symbols Plus, which is our weekly supplement to this show. As you guys know, I recently talked to Shuhei Yoshida for 2 hours, which was awesome. We put that on YouTube for everyone, so go check that out. We recently ranked the Sony IP, although that's only part 1, so you can check that out as well. Sat down with my old friend Destin Legary from IGN, who's now off on his own to catch up on his life in the industry and going out on your own. And I'll be talking with Jaffe for the first time in a while tomorrow, and that will go live this weekend. Please look forward to it. Other perks on Patreon, RSS feeds, Spotify connections, Discord access, submitting your inquiries, of course. Look for the various posts on the news feed for the various shows. Submit your inquiries, and I'll pick through them and put them into the show. You'll hear a bunch of them today. And finally, if you listen on free feeds, please do consider leaving us nice reviews, 5-star reviews. Follow us wherever you want. Do whatever you want. I don't know what else to tell you. All right. Let's see. Let's get into the inquiries from the show, or for the audience. We'll try to go somewhat briskly for Chris, but I can't make any promises that it won't be 5 hours. A DZ Dadon wrote in and said, Sacred Symbols Squad, I hope you're all doing well. I'm reaching out with a special request that means a lot to me and my family. My son Bishop is scheduled for surgery on March 6th, 2025, and I would love for this moment in time to be documented in a meaningful way. Sacred symbols have been an important part of my life. Sacred symbols has been an important part of my life, I would say. Although I understand if we were talking about, whatever. And I hope to one day share with Bishop not only my love for gaming, but also the connection of sacred symbols. It would mean the world if you could take a moment to wish him luck on your show. That way, when he's older, I can look back and tell him about this time in history and the support he had from the Sacred Squad. Thank you for all that you do. Your show is more than just a podcast. It's something that brings people together, and I truly appreciate it. Well, we're wishing Bishop the very best. You didn't tell us what he was getting surgery on, so I can only assume, is it gender reassignment?
Oh.
Whoa. Immediately?
That's where my mind went. I don't know. I wonder what's wrong with him, young Bishop. That's a nice name. You know what the name Bishop reminds me of? Well, first of all, I had a teacher in 6th grade, Mr. Bishop, who was really nice. He was the guy I told this story about how he had this thing, and obviously you couldn't say it anymore because terminology, I guess, has changed, but it was called Bork, B-O-R-K.
Right.
And I remember I told you this, and he would just say it. So like to see if you're paying attention, and first person to raise their hand would get a starburst. And so he would be in the middle of some sort of 6th grade lecture about fucking photosynthesis or something, and then he'd be like, so the sunlight does it, Bork, and it was kind of clever actually to make sure you were engaged. So and then it reminds me of the black guy from the X-Men, or I guess was it X Factor? You know who I'm talking about? It was Cable and Bishop. And Bishop was like a really cool like machine gun using.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I know this.
It is X-Men.
I think it's just X-Men. What's X Factor?
Wasn't that a
I thought it was like a talent show or something.
No, there was like another. Maybe I am there was another comic book with X in it. Yeah, X Factor. That was a comic book.
Oh, okay.
It was a 1990s X Factor team.
Not Simon Cowell.
Yeah, not Simon Cowell.
So it's what is the lineup? Yeah, I don't even know any of these characters. I know some of the bad guys. Sabretooth is one of them.
I barely. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything.
I can't believe I dug deep for that. I mean, Dagan was in the comics, so that's how I know all this stuff. That's how I knew about randomly Dagan brought up Psylocke the other day, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember iconic 1992, 1993 cover of Psylocke on one of the X-Men.
Everything I know about comic books is Spider-Man and Marvel vs. Capcom. Right. And that's it. That's exclusively it.
Yeah.
I don't know what anything's from.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Totally. So yeah, Bishop's a cool character, and that's what I was thinking of. But nonetheless, that's not who we were talking about. We're talking about Bishop here, who's going in for gender reassignment surgery, and we wish him the very best indeed.
Yeah. Bishop, stay well. My only bit of advice, if you sell a console on eBay, make sure you clear it. Just for the future. Don't listen to the beginning of the show quite. Well, he said he's going to save this for later.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He'll understand the joke and that we're laughing about his gender reassignment surgery.
Right. Well, either way, I mean, it's still good advice, regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
Wipe your devices.
Yeah, it's generally a good practice. Bishop is a cool name, though.
It is.
Although it's like, I remember there was this friend of mine's dog. I don't remember what his real name was because I just called him Bishop because he walked diagonally. So he would walk on like a
clever.
He would walk like a chess piece, and I was like, so I would call him Bishop. He responded to that name more than his real name at a certain point. And I felt really bad about it. But
I told you guys that my friend Abby's roommate in college she lived with this girl for several years, and she had a dog, and it was like an adopted dog that was later, and so her real name was, I can't remember what the rename name was, but her original name was Jessica. But then they started calling her something else, and I just kept calling her Jessica.
That's fucked up. I did the same thing, though, I guess.
All right. Derek wears Vaseline-filled socks wrote in, and spelled like your Derek. Derrick. Says, whose chair is squeaking? And what's the address for the P.O. box to send Greece? Whose chair is someone's chair squeaking?
I saw comments about this, and I believe it was related to Chris were you on Constellation maybe recently? I didn't hear it in the edit, so if someone timestamps it, but
I don't hear any.
I have never heard it.
Yeah, ever. I hear clicks sometimes, but
maybe someone said it was a squeaky pen that you were messing with.
Oh yeah, it was. I know what you're saying. Yeah, it was a pen. That wasn't the chair.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I specifically soundproofed my chair. I have rollerblade wheels on my chair specifically, so it doesn't.
Oh, cool.
It makes
Take that
no
down a
noise.
hill.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
dude, I've thought about it so many times, but then I realized it would kill me.
What was that PlayStation Move game about, like Japanese businessmen going downhill on office chairs? That was a game. Remember?
What the?
It was like really bad.
No, I don't remember.
Do you know
this
what I'm
at all.
talking about? Dustin,
I do know what you're talking about. I wanted to say Tokyo Jungle, but that's not it.
No, there's like a game that launched, I think, with PlayStation Move in 2010, where you like were going downhill on office chairs.
Is it called Kung Fu Rider?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, yeah,
that's the game.
That must be what it is.
Or is that like one of the mini? Is it like?
No, I think that's the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing in the screenshot.
Yeah, it is the game. Yeah, I remember this game. This is a weird. I don't know why I pulled that out. I got horrible reviews, I want to say.
I would imagine
36 on Metacritic. We gave it a 3.5. Who reviewed it? Oh, Ryan Clements reviewed it. Interesting.
Kung Fu Rider. What the hell?
Yeah, that's a pretty obscure PlayStation game.
What a weird. Obscure. What? This almost looks like a Yakuza minigame.
Yeah,
like this doesn't look real at all. That's awesome.
And yet,
that's a great pull.
PlayStation Move had some cool games. It would be cool to kind of go back and remember PlayStation Move somehow. I don't know, maybe in a Sacred Symbols Plus episode. But I really liked Sports Champions. It was a really like a much more sophisticated Wii Sports, which was even Wii Sports Resort wasn't as good. And then the Zindagi games, that was a studio that worked with San Diego Studios. They did, what did they do? Sorcery, right? And Medieval Moves. And those were good games. They were like kind of light gun-ish sort of games, but they were cool. They tried, nonetheless. It was a little late. Plus, they looked like dildos.
Oh, yeah.
With lights on the end of them. So that didn't help. All right. Dustin, we haven't heard from you in a while, wrote in. Said, hey, CDC, please list 5 things you achieved this past week. Dustin?
Well, I could individually list each show.
Right. That's fine. We just want to make sure you're hearing us.
Right.
Are you there?
Well, here's what's funny about that is, so my dad's a government employee, has received this email. I'm going to leave what he thinks about all this out. I don't want to speak for him, whatever. And we were talking about it, and then I saw Elon be like, oh, well, it's just a pulse check. But now they're supposed to do it every week. So
really?
Liar?
Wow, that's fucking crazy. That's classic middle management. That's like the kind of shit I used to want to kill myself at IGN for. Like the people that worked there just to bother you. Mm-hmm. Like it was unclear that they did anything else other than bothering you.
Right.
So that seems a little unnecessary, I would say. It's funny, I think I said this on the show, is that like my stepfather took the deal.
Oh,
like,
yeah?
Yeah. Like he's for people that don't know, I brought up in the past, he's an FBI analyst. And he took the deal, and he's now a professor starting in the fall at a school in Virginia. So he's like, all right, I'll take it.
Yeah. It's an
amazing payout. 8 months.
Yeah.
You would never get that in the public sector. Never.
No, man. It's
incredible deal. I couldn't believe more people didn't take it. You know, oh my God.
That generation seems to just get everything handed to them. It's kind of wild.
They won't go away either. That's the thing, is that it's so funny you say that, because I was just talking about that with Micah. We were watching the it's not a State of the Union, I guess, but it's like a congressional address that Trump gave. And we were just looking at the people in the audience, and I'm like, these people, why do we allow this? I don't believe in age limits because I think it reads differently. Like Bernie Sanders is completely with it, and he's, I think, older than Trump and Biden were. So like, I don't like being like, oh, at some point you have to go. It's like Noam Chomsky was giving interviews until he was like in his late 90s and he was totally salient. So I don't like that kind of alienation, but it's like, don't you have something better to do at some point? What the fuck are you doing here? You're 80 or like you're 70, 75. You're using a walker. Barbara Boxer. or was it Barbara Boxer? No, it was the other one in California. Died in office because out of old age. Strom Thurmond, I think, was like 102 when he was a senator, and was an avowed racist.
Yeah. Avowed,
and he was in the segregationist party, and we let him just hang out. It's like I'm like,
it's crazy.
I that really bothers me because I think it is unique to the boomers. That's what I was saying to Micah. I was like, the greatest generation, the boomers' parents, knew when to fuck off, and in fact, they were amped to fuck off. I was saying like people in that generation were like, oh, I work at IBM and I can retire when I'm 50. Okay, you'll never see me again. Like that was fucking, they loved that. But then the boomers come along and they're on the fucking mouse wheel and they just won't get off. I see it with my own mother. Like, my mom is 75. She retired. She worked a government, like a state government job. She was in academia for a long time. And then she retires. And then, so she retires, gets her pension, does all that kind of stuff, but then gets another job. I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, I'm like, you don't need the money. Just relax. Jesus Christ. So when you're in Congress for like 15 terms, I think it's time to go.
You know what it is though? It's like, oh, well, but I don't have anything to do.
That's totally what it is, Chris. That's what, because Micah was saying, Micah was hypothesizing, like, what is this? And I'm like, I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you're like 30 and you get into the House, and then you're in there for 20 terms, that's all you know. You don't know how to leave it. You don't know how to not run. You don't know how to. And I'm like, damn, dude, like it's gotta be in government, in business, everywhere. Like people have to go. It's crazy that Congress is in stock, not with people your age, because you guys are a little young, but people my age. Like it should be all people my age and maybe like into their 50s.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Running things. Like Gen X and elder millennials should be like running the show now, but it's still, and what happens is these people stick around and all of the good people underneath them just wash out. That's why there seem to be so few young, good politicians. It's like, why would you stick around when this woman with the fucking walker is going to run for her 23rd term? You're never getting into that seat.
Yeah. Being assisted by her daughter, who's like, I'll vote for you.
Right.
It's
like, that's nice. That's we voted for you. So that's good.
Yeah, it's great. Love you.
We elected you. And this is what I always say this about the House is like, if you read, and I've read extensively, as I'm sure people understand, is like, read about the Constitutional Convention and like the foundation of the House. And the idea was it was supposed to be like people coming and going. It was supposed to be like a chapter of your life. I'm a businessman from Boston. I'm going to go run for 2 terms and then go back home. The idea of the permanent politician wasn't a thing. Didn't exist.
Yeah.
The greatest politicians in American history and early American history, none of them were professional politicians. They were writers. They were businessmen. They were, John Hancock was the richest person in the colonies. George Washington was a planter. It's like, now it's like, oh, what do you do? I'm the congressperson. It's like, okay. Can't take it. I hate it. God, I hate it. It's so annoying. I hope we're not like that. And I feel like we're going to be, because we're going to say like, well, they did it.
Nah.
Yeah.
I just can't believe like the parents that the greatest generation, the weirdest gap in all of American history, I think, is the greatest generation to the boomers. There's something like got totally fucking lost there.
Lost in translation, you think?
Yeah. Like, I think the boomers were the first generation. You don't want to say this because Vietnam was horrible and a lot of people went there and a lot of people were in the military. My dad was in the Air Force, as I know your dad was also in the military. So it's not like they had it totally easy, but it was the first generation where you didn't have like an existential crisis for a while. Because you think about like the greatest generation went through, some of them World War I, the Depression, and then World War II. I mean, can you imagine like what life was like for fucking 30 years? It was horrible.
Right.
Comparable to, and then like they understood that. And so they like gave us this generation of people that should have also understood that. And they just didn't.
Well, the idea was maybe like we experienced this and it was the worst thing ever. So we're going to do everything possible so our kids don't have to experience what we did.
It's definitely what it was.
Maybe it was like the boomers were like, oh man, they went through a lot. We got to earn it. We got to work forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can chill. I personally do not have the desire to work for as long as possible. My desire is to work for as long as I absolutely have to, and then fucking cash out.
That's exactly right.
Makes no sense.
I have a visual of like a calendar, my various, my bank account, my investments, and the time I have left, or I think I have left. And when all three of those things meet in like the perfect combination, I'm out. Like, I'm not working into my 60s and 70s if I can help that. No way. If that's what you have to do, I think that's sad and that's fucked up.
Yeah.
That that Social Security, Medicare, all that can't let people retire with dignity. But doing it out of choice is in some way even crazier.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. Do what you want. What do we achieve this past week? I don't know. Probably nothing.
Yeah. I laid down for 5 straight days, actually.
Dave Ramos wrote in and said, Colin, are you aware of what kind of debauchery you enable by not being on the show? In last week's episode, after you left, Chris proceeded to mock you and your frequent use of the phrase, let's go around the horn, by taking out an actual demon horn and dancing around with it. From there, he and Dustin performed satanic rituals and carved demonic imagery, which they dubbed the true sacred symbols. I know you don't listen to recorded shows, so I hope you take me at my word that all of this happened. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I forgot how I got that horn in the first place.
Yeah. It was kind of cool, dude. And got my dick out.
Yeah. We
covered myself in blood.
Immediately stripped naked.
Yeah, right. Very primal.
I wish I had known ahead of time because I could have planned some stuff. Like
sorry. I thought it'd be funnier to spring it on you guys. I guess it wasn't.
No, I mean it was fun. I think we handled it pretty okay. But I have a list of colonisms that I'm going to be using whenever this happens again, on the off chance that it does.
Right. Well, the funniest thing that did happen was when Chris was reading one of your write-ups, he had like paused for a second. He's like, what the fuck? Oh, he wrote this in colonies.
Right.
He's like, I have to read this as if I'm Colin.
Yeah,
I would never didn't quite make sense. But
that's it did. Right. No, I get it. I write a very specific way. You can go and read my fucking FAQs from 10th grade and I write a specific way. It doesn't sound good when you say it that way because it's like either I was a really talented writer then or I just have never evolved as a writer. But either way, earnestly, I think writing is one of the few things I'm really good at. But I write for my voice. So back in the day, I would never write scripts for other people because I'm like, I can't. I don't know how to do it. Because we had script writers like Mike Pereira was one of our great script writers for years, and he was awesome at it because he would like read and kind of get your inflection and know how. And I'm like, I'm not capable of doing that. I can only write one way, and it's me. Lots of uses of double dashes and I love the double dash.
Love the double dash,
and I love the semicolon as well.
Yeah,
double dash always reminds me that we gave Mario Kart Double Dash a 7.9, which became a meme for like 20 years.
Yeah. There was that and Too Much Water. Those are like the
Nintendo memes
IGN
from IGN memes, yeah. The Too Much Water one's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right. I didn't one of the games even say, like, I think it became like a meta thing in the game. Like one of the games had that in it, which is crazy when you think about it.
I had this was years ago. I had dinner with Ryan McCaffrey and I think it was Sean Finnegan.
Oh, Sean Finnegan.
Yeah.
When was this?
This was before PSX.
You went to dinner with Ryan McCaffrey and Sean Finnegan.
And Destin, but I guarantee he does not remember.
And Destin Legare, yeah. Okay.
Just because I asked them. I was like, hey, I'm a listener of Unlocked, and I know you've gone to dinner with other listeners before. Do you want to do this? And they said yes. So Sean told, I think it was Sean, that the reviewer, which was Kaylee something.
Yeah.
She used to
Kaylee
Plaguey. Yeah. That she didn't even write that line.
No, I'm sure she didn't. I'm sure that is unfortunate because it was in the pluses and minuses, which were probably reduced by the reviews editor.
Right.
And when you think about it, it's like kind of a stupid thing to fixate on. It became a self-fulfilling joke because I'm like, it's not that funny, but it is funny that people are just, it became funny because people fixated on it, but I could see 99 out of 100 times no one would have even cared about that. And that's why you shouldn't reduce your reviews to anything. You should just have the review, but nonetheless. Okay. What were we talking about? How did we get into all that?
Let's see, debauchery. Oh, last week's episode and
right.
Our takeover.
Yeah, well, that was good. I appreciate you guys doing that. Everything's fine with me. I got my oh god damn it! I dropped my AirPods. I got my referral to a real a doctor, an orthopedic doctor. But I'm gonna give it a few more weeks and see what happens. I also went to the eye doctor this past week just to. I used to go to the eye doctor every year for many years, and then I just stopped when I moved here. So this was the first time in 5 or 6 years I went and get a new baseline that they can compare in the years to come.
2020?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, or very close to it. I would have negative 0.25 or negative 5.5 rather.
Yeah,
which is
that's nothing.
No, the worst. I wore glasses. I mean, Chris knew me when I wore glasses. They were negative one, and I didn't even really need them. Yeah. I could read the smallest text when he would show it to me, for instance.
Yeah,
it makes things clearer. There's no doubt about it. But I think I'm probably okay.
Yeah, I would say -2 is probably when it starts to get okay. -5 is then it's over. You know what I mean? But between 2 and 0 is kind of negligible.
Definitely. I always think about with eyes, it's I can't believe, because I've known people, and Micah doesn't have great eyesight without her lenses or her glasses or her contacts, and I'm that would scare the shit out of me. I can just see, and it's weird. It's so crazy that what did people do? For years and decades and centuries and eons, it's crazy shit.
They would
People's
die.
Eyes yeah, I would assume so. Which in some sense makes it interesting that it's still a persistent problem. You think that we would have selected for it before we could do anything about it, or there would have just been a selection for it because people would just cavemen would have died if they couldn't see or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, well, I think the issue probably is that I would imagine that there's just so much that affects your vision now that didn't used to, screens and all sorts of even just chemicals and stuff that didn't used to be a factor.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to play some part in it.
You guys, well, Chris, you don't, I don't think, but Dustin, you wear contacts, right?
Yep.
That to me as a whole, I can't even imagine.
I wear contacts sometimes.
I couldn't. I have a really hard time. They have to put things in my eye. They have to fucking jack it open because I just have this instinct to be no.
Yeah.
And that people do that is wild to me.
You get used to it, kind of. I still hate it. I would just prefer to just put my glasses on and be done with it. But
yeah.
And then they get lost sometimes, and you have to
That's never happened to me.
Yeah, I dated a girl where she had to get it removed from the side of her eye or whatever, it's because of migraines, I guess.
I have an eye doctor's appointment, not next week, but the week after. And last time I was there, normally I get this thing called the Opti Map, which is basically they take a picture of your eyeball so they can see inside of it.
Right. I did that.
And last time I was there, they said, you haven't had your eyes dilated in quite a few years. So next time you're here, you should do that. And I fucking hate that. Yeah. I'm dreading it. It's going to ruin the whole day. I made sure to schedule my appointment. I think it's at 3 because I'm going to be fucked the rest of the day. I'm going to have Holly drive me there. And I know that you can wear sunglasses. Last time it happened to me, it was so bad that it gave me a headache. So have you ever had that where they dilate?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you do get the sweet glasses.
Oh yeah.
That wrap all the way around. You look like Cyclops.
Right.
Or Geordie LaForge.
Wear them on the show.
Yeah, well, you could. Do old people still remember I'm sure you guys remember it felt like in the 90s and into the 2000s it was cool for old people to wear the blue blockers that went all the way around the face that had the lenses go on the sides. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah.
And I don't see anyone wearing those anymore. Old people. Old people were rocking those for a minute though. They were.
My dad had a pair of sunglasses that they weren't full wraparound, but they had a little bit of extra chunkiness to go over glasses. And he wore these for years. And then I I remember he stopped wearing them, and I think I asked him or my mom did, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw a picture of me wearing those, and I looked so stupid I could never wear them again." Like, this took you literally years. So they didn't look that bad, but
no, I'm sure they didn't.
He didn't like them.
Josh Bartlett wrote in and said, "Dear esteemed gentlemen of the Sacred Order, I write to you today with a grave concern, one that has been festering within the depths of my very soul. How in the name of all that is holy and unholy for that matter, have we allowed Dagon to officially rebrand himself as the Dagster? I feel like I vividly remember earlier episodes of Constellation where the weekly guest would make fun of the title, but now nobody seems to bat an eye whenever he refers to himself in the third person as this godforsaken nickname. Is there no oversight? No quality control on the nicknames within your hallowed halls? Are we to simply accept this? I demand an explanation and perhaps even compensation for having to endure this atrocity. Obviously, this is all in jest, but still, I find it quite funny how it has become completely normal for him to be the Dagster. How can that be?" I don't know. I've tried a lot of different things and no one cares. So he's now the Dagster, I guess. It's a horrible nickname. And he refers to himself as the Dagster. It's like George referring to himself as George. Like, I don't like it. I'm not into it, but I'm not into a lot of things. So Dagon has a sort of special mystical power about him. He just kind of just slides by, doesn't he? He kind of gets to do whatever he wants. No one really criticizes anything. He only gets compliments. It's like, okay, lucky you.
It was annoying in the moment, but when we did our panel at Too Many Games and he walked up to the stage at the exact time it started. That was the first time I'd seen him at the event. Him walking up to the stage as it started. I was like, well, I mean, you made it. You did it.
Dagon doing whatever he wants. Yeah, that's been the way it's been for a long time.
No, I gotta say, I like the Dagster.
You like the name?
I think it's great.
Yeah,
I love that it's even more awesome that he boldly declared it in face of major pushback.
Yeah, it's true.
And then he made it happen.
Yeah.
But as you guys know, I love to give things nicknames to the chagrin of other people. So actually, this was a few months ago. I was on Discord with Brad and Ben and our friend Brandon. We said something. I don't know if it was like it's like, oh, you got to get some mangs, which is what we call this beer that we like, Icy Light Mango. And Brad was like, wait, you guys give nicknames to fucking everything. Like, he got viscerally angry. And I was like, you know what? You are right. We do give everything a nickname. So,
yeah.
Dagster, live on.
Oh,
do not stand down.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Dagster, stand up.
Stand up, Dagster.
All right. Finally, 616 Entertainment wrote in. He's, of course, Ian. He's the editor of the SideQuest Revival. And I'll have another episode, I think, ready in the coming weeks. I've already written half of it. I've just been busy with other things. Hey, punkheads. I'll keep it short. You know I love you boys, but last week's Wonder Woman conversation was the most oh my god, what is happening bullshit I've heard on the show in forever. Dustin, you're free and clear you didn't contribute to this. But Colin and Chris, how the hell did you carry on a conversation about a character for an entire segment when she's like old, right? Was the best you could come up with. I'm not saying go and read the comics or watch the movies, but holy shit, peruse a few Google images or a Wikipedia paragraph. Chris questioned what a Wonder Woman game would even be. Guys, she's strong as hell, cuts jabronis down with a sword on the regular and is super hot. God of War, Stellar Blade, Shadow of Mordor, she's all of these things. Have a good show, but surely you must stand down. Listen, dude, whatever you say.
Well, I do want to say also that, like, yeah. God of War, Stellar Blade, Shadow of Mordor, she's all these things. I was like, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's just like, what would it be if not things that we have already? That's kind of the thing with Spider-Man. It's like Spider-Man is like very unique. Like there's nobody else plays like that. So like obviously he's going to have a successful video game career, and he has for quite some time now at this point. Because it's a very unique character and a very unique moveset and a very unique traversal system. It's all very weird. But like Wonder Woman, yeah, she's just a hot lady with a sword, which I'm not saying can't be fun. I'm just like, I'm wondering what could Monolith is working on it, right? Or am I?
They were. Yeah.
So my question is like, what could Monolith have done with that formula to make it stand out? To me, that's difficult. That's like a really difficult job. I kind of feel low-key, I feel the same way about Wolverine. Kinda. Like I look at Wolverine and I'm like, I remember X-Men Origins Wolverine being fun. And it definitely was a fun action game. But that's a guy. That's a guy. You know, it's a guy running around slashing people up, which I'm not saying can't be fun, but it's definitely like something I've seen before. And so it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a tough job, I think, to make a great Wonder Woman game.
I was thinking,
yeah, go ahead.
What about her invisible plane? Which I almost mentioned that last week, but I couldn't remember if it was real. And I just looked it up. It is true. She had an invisible jet.
The invisible jet.
Imagine a video game. It would just look like she had like spawned into a car, but the asset didn't load and then fly around. I think that could be cool.
Yeah, this is, to me, this character is classic comic book corniness. And not in a good way.
Yeah.
But
so
I don't know anything about her. I don't care. To each their own. I don't care. If you're into one, a lot of people are into Wonder Woman. That's great. But not me.
No. Fact 616. I know he defended me because I didn't say anything, but dork.
That's
right
crazy.
in defending Wonder Woman?
Yeah, it's bad.
Not a good look.
He came to your defense and you're like, thanks, dork.
Thanks, dork.
Thanks for your defense, dweeb. No, like, yeah, I don't know. It is that kind of classic comic book corniness. It could work. You know, I'm not saying it could. Like, dude, they made Polka Dot Man work in that Suicide Squad movie. And I was like, that's crazy that this was as cool as it was. So like, there's a chance for any of it. I just, in a game scenario, it's hard for me to imagine.
And I'm just, listen, she's hot. Who cares? Like, I'm just, like, hotness is not a limited quantity of, like, it's got to be more than that.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think I remember though. I mean, some gamers feel like we're starved to the hotness. I mean, look at how they reacted with Stellar Blade.
Right.
They probably would have made Wonder Woman not hot too.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it's probably for the best. Because remember, this is the publisher that, like, yeah, the Suicide Squad game and all that. I'm sure it would have been insulting, probably. But hey, if, you know, I'm looking at the one from the 70s, and I know this was a big show for a lot of people, a lot of young people. You know, at that time, young people.
I think I remember that movie, the Gal Gadot movie, the first one. I think I remember almost liking that movie because I thought it was going to end in like a certain way. Like, I thought it was ending, and I was like, oh, that's a kind of a bold way to end a movie like this. That's kind of cool. And then they were like, just kidding, here's a big CGI monster. And I was like, oh, okay. It's one of these. And then I immediately forgot about everything about it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I never saw it.
Yeah.
There was a sequel too, right?
Yeah, that one was apparently really terrible.
I'm not watching, like, anything. Batman I love, but any DC shit other than Batman, it's like, no way. I'd be way more likely to watch a Marvel movie than, like, because to me, a lot of the DC stuff, I'm like, this is just bad. Like Aquaman. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
What is this? You know, like, what is this? Or Shazam or whatever. I'm like,
yeah,
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, there's no doubt that, like, the X-Men or Spider-Man or whatever, these are like way cooler characters, in my opinion.
Did you see The Batman?
I did. Yeah, I saw it in the theater, actually.
I remember that because you were like, I haven't been to a theater in forever.
Yeah,
That's a good movie.
Yeah, it was too long, but it was like way too long. But it was good. Yeah, it felt like it wasn't paced or anything like a Nolan movie, but it felt like that it took place in the Nolan universe in some sense because it was so dark and dreary and it wasn't campy really. And I liked the Riddler in that.
I saw that movie again like in the past week while I was like sick because I was just like watching movies and stuff. And I totally didn't realize it, but like, dude, Irving is in that movie.
Oh yeah,
I had no idea. John Turturro is in it. He's Carmine Falcone.
Oh,
I was like, nice. Oh my God, it's you,
dude.
I remember.
Shout out to Irving.
Yeah, shout out to Irving.
He's in my mind, he'll always be Jesus from The Big Lebowski.
Oh right.
Yeah.
He's also in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which I haven't seen that movie in.
He is
decades.
That's with George Clooney.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. All right, let's get into some game stuff. It's time. I want to start with Twin Breaker, which is so as people know, I co-own a studio, Lilimo, an indie studio. Years ago in 2020, we released a game called Twin Breaker, a Sacred Symbols adventure. And we've just more recently released Tribreaker, the sequel to the game that's available on all of your platforms of choice. Well, we just wanted to say, and I just wanted to say, Barry didn't ask me to do this, but just to let everyone know, Twin Breaker, it now has a native PlayStation 5 version. And if you own the PS4 and Vita versions of the game, you'll just get it for free. So if you buy Twin Breaker moving forward on PlayStation, you'll get the PS5, the PS4, and the Vita versions together. But if you bought them back in the day, you can download the PS5 version free of charge. It has a new trophy list and free things for you to mess around with if you'd like. So just wanted to let you guys know. I love Twin Breaker. That's an important game for me. That was the first game I was ever involved with putting onto the market. BMJ614 wrote into us on Patreon. Remember, you can write in on Patreon. You've heard a bunch of inquiries already. Use the weekly thread in the newsfeed. He says, hello, fearless leader, bold, second in command, and unpredictable wild card. I always wondered, are there Lilimo games in a connected universe? The games Colin helped make, take care. Yes. Well, not so Twin Breaker and Tribreaker are their own thing, but all the other games are in the same universe. So Perils and Super Perils, Hebroxia 1 and Hebroxia 2 are all in the same universe, yes. And listen, you want to just spoil Super Perils of Baking for you? Okay. You had your chance. Although I hope you go play it. I'm really proud of that game. Is that if you beat the game with a real ending, you do everything in the game and then beat it, you'll see that the pilot from Hebroxia 1 is reading Super Perils of Baking to the pilot from Hebroxia 2, who is his daughter, Sabrina. So it's a storybook from their universe. That was the entire idea. So yeah, they all take place in the same universe. Also, Interview Johnson, the landlord on Fireside Chats wrote in. I fucking love that name. That's so funny. This is referencing my old Chinese landlord in San Francisco, Johnson. Hi, CDC. Did you all see the awesome Terminator 2D No Fate trailer? Are we entering a AA and licensed game renaissance? I played Battle for Bikini Bottom and Mafia 1 Definitive Edition, full of glitches for me, including losing sound over and over again back-to-back last year, and had a great time with these shorter, less polished games. After this experience, I want to play RoboCop and the other Terminator games soon. What do you all think? So, yeah, the second half of that, I don't really know, because I think that, yeah, there is room for licensing in the AA space. There, you see that a lot with horror games and other things too. But this Terminator No Fate game is really great looking. I think it's by Bitmap Bureau, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it comes out September 5th. So yeah, I saw it. I just didn't bring it up. It didn't seem like it was really that relevant to many people, but it looks great, and I'll definitely play it when it comes out.
I've never seen a Terminator movie.
Really?
Nope.
That's interesting.
Might be time.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything but Terminator 1 or 2. But
2's supposed to be the best one, right?
Yeah,
2's the best.
They're both
2 is, yeah.
They're both great though. Terminator 1, I think, is a really gritty sci-fi, like underrated sci-fi film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 was like the big budget. I had the toys from it. Like, that's how big it was. It was so funny. And I was like 7 or 8 or whatever I was when that came out. That movie's sick. All right. Guys, PlayStation 2, happy birthday. Turned 25 years old 2 days ago from when we're recording. It came out in Japan March 4th, 2000. I will never forget playing it for the first time, which was that summer before it came out in the West. I went to I think it still goes on. I think it's at Stony Brook University on Long Island. It's called Icon. And it was like an early anime and video game expo, and it started in the 90s. So I went that year and was entered a tournament, a fighting game tournament that was revolving around a Japanese PlayStation 2. And so we played like Street Fighter EX. I think Tekken Tag might have been there, but I didn't play that, and some other stuff on Dreamcast as well, because that was around the same time. So great memories of that. And yeah, 25 years old. Probably the most iconic PlayStation machine, although my least favorite of the consoles, I would say. Any memories you guys want to share of the PS2?
I don't remember what the first game I got. I remember getting it for Christmas used. My family pitched in for it. And it was it's like an iconic Christmas of, I never expected to get that. I do remember that it came with the Deep Impact on DVD.
Deep Impact. I love that movie.
It might have been. It was either Deep Impact. Is that about an asteroid?
Yeah.
Okay, it's one of the
Deep Impact and Armageddon are the two asteroid movies, and they came out back to back, like in the theaters. They came out like a month apart.
I think it might have been Armageddon.
Armageddon's the more famous one. Deep Impact's the better one.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yeah. I don't remember what I played on it. I do remember that console eventually stopped working. Like the disk drive just shit the bed. So it's a really sad time, but that was when the disk drive started to go bad. So when I got my first Xbox to play Halo. So, but that's side point. But yeah, PS2, lots of legendary games. Remember playing, of course, Kingdom Hearts, playing Final Fantasy X. Didn't finish it though. Yeah, lots of good stuff. I'm trying to remember what else I love. Dude, the Dragon Ball Z Budokai games, Chris and I both love those.
Yeah.
I never had I only had 2 consoles ever die in my entire life, which is interesting. Like really just stop working. One wasn't my NES when I was a kid. And which I don't know what was going on with that, but I remember so clearly getting the new NES or getting like the refurbished NES, whatever they did, they repaired it and everything worked so well for a little while. It was like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but you wouldn't remember this, but when you got an NES game, they stopped working well after a while. You know, for people that don't know, the 79 pin connector would sit on top of the cartridge would sit on top of it. So anything it was stupid. That's why the SNES and the top loading NES and everything worked so well, because it just shoved everything together. But when you first got a game, no matter how bad, and I wonder if people remember this because it's such a fond memory, no matter what shape your NES was in, like you were used to games just not working anymore and shit like that. When you got a new game, it worked. And I remember that it was like in the reverse where we got the new NES and like everything just worked for a little while until it started to wear down again. And then my PlayStation 3 died. I remember that. And
Yellow Light?
Yeah. And it was the PS3 Slim.
Oh, wow.
And I remember sending it in to Sony and then they sent it back to me, but I'm pretty sure they just gave me a new one. Like it was like in the refurbished box, but I don't feel like it was the same machine. So yeah, that's it. I never had any other consoles break. I don't know if my consoles are broken now. Like my PS1 never broke. My PS2 never broke. None of my Nintendo stuff after the NES broke. It was hard to break cartridge-based stuff. When I knew people that had like a broken NES, SNES, like I did, or a Genesis or whatever, it's a little weird because there's no moving parts. Like the connectors are just fucked up in some way. The Genesis always worked great. The Master System always worked great. So
yeah,
I remember the NES. The one I had was used, and it was like my parents were super poor, and so this is what they got me for Christmas. I had no idea, but I remember them putting a game in, and then sometimes you had to like put another game kind of wedged in it.
Oh yeah,
in order to get it to work, and it's like don't step near it.
Yeah, don't
breathe near it.
Yeah,
because if you do, it's toast.
If you like
so crazy.
I remember Dagan's an angry gamer like I am, although I'm not so angry anymore because I'm way better at games now, I guess, than I was then in some sense. And games are easier, like way easier. But you like just like being like, oh, like with the controller and like just dragging the console a little bit just resets it. It was a really finicky thing. I remember for us, you would put I wish I had my NES here somewhere. It would put away, but it's like you would put the cartridge in and then you would pull it out and start tapping it down to the point where like the first millimeter where it was able to go down, you would shove it in and that would like help it hold the pins together. And it would like help. There were all sorts of like weird tricks. Like you would never put the NES cartridge in and like push it all the way in and put it down. It would never work. You had to jiggle it around and then like, it was fucking annoying. And like I said, like the games with batteries, like the RPGs, if you forgot to hold the reset button in when you shut the game off, it would just erase your save. It would just be gone. And there's so many people that lost saves in like Dragon Warrior games and Final Fantasy and these other games because of that. It was almost like passwords were almost better for that reason. Very fun. I loved it. The NES is still my favorite console by a mile. I fucking love that thing. It's so perfect. It's perfect. It's so perfect. It's games. It's like games that are just these fun, kinetic action experiences. There were developers and publishers at the top of their game, like Capcom and Konami, Nintendo. Man, what a fucking machine. And you can know it. You're never going to present to me an NES game I never heard of. And most likely play it, at least on an emulator. That's what's so fun about it. You're not going to just drop some random nugget on me because we know all the games. It's impossible to be that way anymore. I'm so fascinated by that.
Yeah.
the amount of games on the NES come out in like a quarter now.
That's so crazy. That's so sad.
It is.
In some way.
I mean, no joke. Shout out to the Nintendo seal of quality. It was dubious in a lot of ways. It was easy to circumvent, but they realized what killed games in the early 80s and they did something about it. And we're back. It's just that it's different now. Like we've said this before, and reflected on this, but it's like, there's not going to be a video game crash. It's just that there's going to be a lot of have-nots in the games industry, as opposed to what happened in the early 80s, which was that quality became so universally bad that everyone became skeptical of the industry. That's not going to happen anymore. So it's different. But anyway, what else is here? Let's see. So yeah, happy birthday, PS2.
Yeah.
Such an important and vital machine. And I remember getting mine that October and it was awesome. It was my DVD player first and foremost in a lot of ways, because I was obsessed with just what I watched Euro Trip probably 5,000 times. I would put it on before I went to bed. As I slowly stacked up my DVD collection, like I just had, few DVDs, Big Lebowski, other things. Bottle Rocket, I remember, was one of the early ones, and I would just play them. I was like, this is amazing.
She's dead now, right? You know that?
What'd you say?
Eurotrip, Michelle Trachtenberg.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's horrible.
Nowhere. Yeah, liver transplant thing.
Right.
Sucks.
Mike and I were discussing that, and I was like, "What's interesting about her is she was, I remember her. She was my age. I think she was a year younger than me. So it's like, I remember Harriet the Spy and all this different stuff that came out that was like really relevant to me at that age. And I was like, she's just this like pretty 90s girl. She's reminiscent of the 90s, even back when she was on Pete and Pete, which is like an iconic show for me. I fucking love that show. And it's like, yeah, she's like a piece of the 90s, and it's too bad. I had no idea she was. I mean, why would I know? But I had no idea. But just her whole look, her aesthetic, her face, her hair, it's like 1990s. What a special time. All right. Layoffs, not so special. Let's get some of the bad news out of the way here. Kotaku reported, interestingly, they don't report very much of original stuff anymore, so we got to give them a shout out for this. Wrote a story, PlayStation hit with more layoffs following recent game cancellations. And then there was a follow-up from an Asian website, miagaming.com, that also talks about layoffs at the Malaysia studio that Sony has. So what's basically happened here is that it seems like they're not contract studios because Sony owns them, but they are basically offsetting studios where you have production and animation and all of the rest kind of offloaded from your main teams. Visual Arts has worked on a bunch of different games, big games. Actually once led by friend of the show, Michael Mumbauer. And really, those are the guys that are kind of responsible for the arms race of PlayStation graphical fidelity in the PS4 era specifically. And so Visual Arts, which is in California, and then the Malaysian studio. So both of these kind of offloading studios to kind of take production from the various teams that are working on things in both first and second party. These teams are now being truncated by layoffs, according to these reportings from Kotaku and this other website, and MIA Gaming, because these games have been canceled behind the scenes. And so, yeah, it doesn't seem like the layoffs are substantial in some sense, and there's not much news about them going into teams that we haven't already discussed in recent months that have already experienced layoffs, but these layoffs have continued, and it's too bad. But I think it's a sign of right sizing in some sense too, as you no longer need to have these heads if there's not so many games. So did you guys see anything about this? This seems to be been a little underreported. I don't really know why more people aren't interested in it, but I don't have much more information than this. So
yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it's one of those things I wonder where, like you said, a lot of these games that they may have been assisting on are canceled, and that's I surely they're affected too by the flow of like, well, next time they have a need, which maybe they feel like they won't have a need for a support studio like that for a year or so, then it's like, are they going to bulk back up? There's also, I think it's mentioned in this Kotaku piece that this where that team was located in the US, like is it in Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's in LA or San Diego. It's in Southern California.
Right. So they may be thinking about like, well, if we need support work having a support team in Los Angeles, one of the most expensive places, might not be ideal. So that's one of the ways they can cut costs, unfortunately.
No doubt. The Malaysian stuff is a little more mysterious because we don't really hear very much. We know that they exist. You know how when I bring up, depending on how you count, Sony owns this many teams. This is one of those teams where I'm like, I don't really count this team because they're not really making original stuff, but they are. It says here it's asset artists, concept artists, project managers, with layoffs between 17 and 18 people over there. So that's sad too. Anything you want to add here, Chris?
Oh, I clicked on the Malaysia the link you put in the doc here, and I was like scrolling through, and I scrolled all the way down, and in the bottom left there's just this like anime chick.
Oh yeah, I see her. Yeah,
I immediately, I just felt like just instant regret on clicking. But I think, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it's like you said. I think it's we're gonna keep seeing more layoffs. I think it just generally, but I don't know really much of what Malaysia even does. So
layoff track. I want to see. We brought this up. Yeah, here it is. So 2022, 8,500 layoffs. 2023, 10,500. 2024, 14,600. We're up to 1,200 now this year. There's like actual graphical work on some of this. So like the layoffs are usually after the fiscal year. So this will be the coming quarter and in the winter. Seems like when things spike. So we're actually, sadly, year over year, we're actually up. Because year over year, January plus February layoffs were about 1,100. And we're up to 1,200 now. So it's an unfortunate right sizing. There's just, I don't know. I know people are tired of hearing me say it, but it's just too many games. Like just not enough people to buy the stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Broderick Fleming wrote in about the next story. He says, "Hey, Sacred, Insider Gaming reports that Ballistic Moon was hit with further layoffs, leaving only the founders and a handful of employees left and essentially leaving Until Dawn for dead. Do you guys think the performance of the remake will give Sony pause on their remake strategy, also pending Days Gone Remastered, or will they try again with some other game and some other studio?" No, I don't think they're going to back off on the remakes and remasters. This was a particularly not a good game, in my opinion. So let's go into the story first. Insider Gaming writes of increasingly trustworthy source, so I really appreciate their work over there. The exclusive Until Dawn remake developer Ballistic Moon effectively closed. Ballistic Moon was obviously working with Sony in a second party capacity and was founded by people that worked at Supermassive and worked on Until Dawn. As people know, they were given the Until Dawn remake project, which kind of brought it to a new engine, and I think played around with it way too much. And what I was going to say was, I categorically and definitively say that the original is just way better in every way. I know that because I played it back in the day, but I played them back to back and then platinumed the original one this last fall, as you guys might remember. So I was really in the weeds with both of them. And I want to go back and platinum this one. It's still on my console. I'll do it at some point. But yeah, it's not very good. So I just don't think it means anything. It means that particular project wasn't well received, and Sony knew it because they barely talked about it. And it says here in the story from Insider Gaming that people are still sharing bugs and doing all the kind of things, and there are things that still need to be fixed in the game, but basically Sony has just pulled funding for it. So it is what it is now, and it's not going to be updated, I don't think, anymore. Did either of you play it? Neither of you did, right? I actually had to go to Ian to even do an episode about it.
Yeah. I just remember hearing what I heard about it and being like, I already kind of felt like the original Until Dawn was just not my wheelhouse anyway. It's a very, it's a narrative kind of interactive movie, and those are cool, but those are not really my style. So to hear that, like, oh, the new one, it's that again, but actually there's a little bit more gameplay in it. To me, it was just like, well, that's not even, I'm not on board in the first place,
right?
Kind of. So it's like, why are you trying to court an audience that isn't really into what you're doing in the first place? Like, it seems like a weird thing to do to. It really doesn't make any sense to me why you would do that.
Yeah, it seems like the easiest. I mean, game development's not easy, so I don't want to claim that. But it's like, hey, we want you to remake a game that a lot of your team worked on. It's not even an old game. It's a game from last generation, and somehow then it comes out and it's worse than the original. It's like at the very least, when you remake a game, and if it's purely a remake and not in the Final Fantasy VII remake, it needs to be on par with the original. And even then, still, like Chris was saying, it's still an uphill battle in that a lot of people are like, I have this game. It runs at 60 FPS on my PS5. Why would I buy it again? You'd have to really juice this thing up to make it worth it, and it didn't even meet the bare minimum. So
yeah, it ran at 30 frames. I don't know if they ever. Right. I don't know if they ever.
That is crazy, by the way.
Yeah, I so insane. It doesn't. In playing it, that wasn't even the problem because it's so filmic that like it's slow and it doesn't really matter. But it is weird because it's not an intensive game. They made a major mistake by unlocking the camera. I said that at the time. Like there was no need for an open camera like that. The game loses a lot of its horror because it's not forcing you to look in certain places. It's a fucking horror game. So while I understand it's like there are plenty of horror games with free cameras, but I'm saying this game had jump scares and certain things. I remember very specific scenes that just didn't pop in the new one because it's like, oh, I could be looking at the fucking ceiling right now. You're not, show me what you want me to look at. They didn't need to remake it. I think the original Until Dawn is really special. It's an icon, in my opinion, an iconic PlayStation game, and they kind of fucked it up. And the word is that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it's been the persistent rumor is that Firesprite is working on the sequel, and the end of in the Until Dawn remake explicitly teases a sequel. I'll just tell you that they do change the ending. So I don't know like what they're doing here, but it's too bad. But no, I don't think it bodes anything for Sony's other remakes. I think they picked a bad partner for this. People that were not prepared to do the work properly and made Until Dawn, like you said, Dustin, worse. By the way, the Until Dawn film comes out next month. I'm going to go see it. We'll do an episode of Sacred about it.
Sure.
The thing to me about games like this is just like I feel like it takes more effort to have done what you did to Until Dawn. So how does it then end up worse? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it takes more effort to make Until Dawn an open camera game. So why expend that effort if the result is so obviously and so transparently? Like I feel like any one of us could have predicted that, like, oh yeah, that game's very, very dependent on its very linear design and its very like specific camera. So to break that would be like a pretty fundamental retooling and a potentially damaging thing to do.
Definitely.
So like how a studio didn't see that is really kind of befuddling to me. But that's the case in a lot of this business, honestly. Like, isn't it? It's just like, oh, how could they not have seen this obvious thing that even just basic enthusiast participators in the medium can see. It's strange.
I'm actually not that you want games to be canceled, but you always hear about, and Shu was talking about this on our talk of like all the games that are canceled that we never even hear about. He and I talked specifically about the Sucker Punch game, Prophecy, that was canceled, where that actually, and I was the one who told him, I'm like, that footage leaked, and he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, like we all saw it, and it's just 12 minutes of gameplay, but for all of that, and that game seemed far along. Although it was probably a really nice vertical slice that they were showing people, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm surprised they didn't cancel Until Dawn, because they didn't announce it until last year, and it came out last year. They probably could have gotten away with not releasing it at all, and they absolutely knew that it wasn't good because of the way they, I mean, come on, man, I've been doing this for a long time. It doesn't take great perception. When they don't talk about games, they don't give codes, they don't do anything, they don't believe in it. So it's like, if you're releasing, why even release it? Like at this point, like why even bother? I wonder how it sold. I would imagine. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, how's it going to sell when the movie comes out? That's the question. They have a product ready on the shelf after the movie.
That's true, but it's going to be bad for the IP because the movie looks pretty cool. The game, yeah, I don't know, man. They should have just hired Supermassive to mess around with the original. And I know Supermassive has a new parent company now, and they might not be available really, but I would imagine they would probably want to work on it. So it is what it is. But yeah, so I'm sorry for everyone that Ballistic Moon's a British studio, and I'm sorry that happened, but it's not a surprise. I feel like I would be shocked if Until Dawn sold more than like 50,000 units, which is horrible.
It's pretty bad.
I don't think it had more than a few hundred concurrents at max on Steam, and no one was playing it on PS5. I mean, not that it's anecdotal, but I have 2,000 friends, just a random gathering of people, gamers from throughout the world on my friends list, and I love seeing what people are playing. And you know how it says like 7 other people are playing this or whatever. It's like no one was playing Until Dawn. That's very rare. I was playing fucking Evo Tinction, and 7 people were playing it. Other people had played it. It's like, come on, man. So, RIP in peace. Guys, PlayStation 3 received a new firmware update. Rob Kavazna wrote in and said, "Dear Sacred Symbols, I just wanted to show my PS3 some love after its recent 4.92 firmware update. My PS3 has been getting a ton of use lately. I dusted it off mainly to play the first Silent Hill. I did not want to feel like a poser diving straight into the Silent Hill 2 remake, and I remembered buying a digital copy of the first game a lifetime ago. I cannot believe how good the game was, and I felt like a moron for waiting for so long to play it. Shout out to all of the PS3s going strong out there, but good luck getting to the PlayStation Store or sinking trophies. Those are the moments where I know death is near." Dude, the sinking of the trophies on PlayStation 3 is insane. Just absolutely fucking crazy. And that's what I remember when Vita came out and it worked really quickly. And we were like, whoa. And then PS4 was even quicker. And now PS5 is kind of automatic. The PS3, and the more trophies you have, the worse it gets. So it could take a half an hour, literally, to sync your trophies on PlayStation 3.
Wow.
And then the store, I mean, I can't even imagine trying to get into that thing. Now, the update is indeed 4.92. It is mandatory. You'll need 200 megabytes of space on your PS3 in order to, which is not an insubstantial amount of space on that thing, to update the console. And this is the first update in a year. There was an update last year as well. I assume this is because people are figuring out new ways to break it. And as we know from recent data from Sony, there are still several million people a quarter using PS3. So they are continuing to fuck around with it. And I think it's awesome that they're continuing to keep PS3 alive. The machine came out 19 years ago. It's old. It's crazy when you think about how old the PS3 is. So I think it's pretty cool that they're still trucking along. And I hope they just keep it alive forever. Or at least until the PS4 and PS5 can read the PS3 store, and then you can get rid of it, as far as I'm concerned. But shout out to all of you PS3 players hanging on for dear life. There's an interview with Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin on Variety that I wanted to direct people towards. It's called Making The Last of Us Season 2, Casting Abby, Video Game Changes, and Why the Creators Are at Peace with Telling a Different Version of the Story. You guys should read it if you're out there, if you're interested. It's definitely worth a read. However, there is something that's circulating from this about The Last of Us Part 2. Or I'm sorry, Part 3, I guess it would be. And a lot of people wrote in about this, so I didn't want to ignore it. But first of all, the duality of man. Trey Dog wrote in and said, "Please don't spend a quarter of the episode pontificating about the possibility of seeing The Last of Us Part 3. But Brandon Stark wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC, would love to hear you guys spend a quarter of the episode pontificating about the possibility of seeing The Last of Us Part 3. Very funny." GD wrote in and said, "Hello, SS. Anyone else feel gaslit by Neil Druckmann? Did he not explicitly say at the end of the behind the scenes The Last of Us 2 documentary that he has a concept for a third story, a one more entry in the series, and now he's saying it's not happening? Is he lying? Did we misinterpret what he explicitly said? Is he going to shadow drop The Last of Us Part 3 like it's a new album? I'm losing my mind. Not really. Thanks for addressing my spiral." A lot of people wrote in about this. This was probably the thing that people wanted to talk about most this week. I don't know how much more I really have to say about this, but here's what happens. At the end of the it's not even really what the Variety story is about. That's why I don't want to get too deep into it, because it's about a lot of other things, and it's interesting and worth reading. But the writer of the Variety piece says, "Then there's a long whispered possibility of The Last of Us Part 3. And Neil says, quote, "I was waiting for this question. I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more Last of Us. This could be it." End quote. Now, a lot of people have interpreted this as saying like, well, it's not happening. And I'm like, I just don't see that. I think that what they're saying is like, we're not dealing with that right now. And that this could be the end. What do you guys think about what's being said here? I thought it was interesting that Neil admitted that he was waiting for the question. So they're obviously prepared. Sony is media training him to answer this a certain way, and I think that that's interesting. Obviously, they're working on Intergalactic. The Last of Us Online was canceled, so it does seem conceivable based on their headcount that there wouldn't be a Last of Us Part 3 in production now, knowing what we know. So, what are your thoughts, Dustin?
Yeah, I kind of just feel like it's worth taking at face value that he doesn't know yet. As you mentioned, they're working on Intergalactic, and so I'm sure that it's all hands on deck for that. And while they might be loosely figuring out what they're going to do after, they may want to wait and see how Intergalactic goes. They might want to go straight into a sequel for that. And when it comes time to figure out what the next project is, maybe the creative motivation isn't there yet to do it. So I believe him when he's just like, well, don't bet on it right now, but I don't know. So I don't know if there's much more to read into it than that. I think it is what he said earlier, because GD says, did he gaslight us about saying there was a concept? That still can be true, that he has a concept for a third game. Just because the concept exists doesn't mean that it's mandatory that it's going to happen. I'm sure that a lot of authors of stories have all kinds of ideas that never get fleshed out into standalone films, movies, books, games, whatever. So I said films and movies, separate things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like, sure, there's a lot to read into, but I am just saying that I just don't think he knows yet. I don't think Naughty Dog knows, and they won't know till they're further along with Intergalactic to see what they want to do next.
Chris, anything strike you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear to me that as I read both of those statements, they don't really seem contradictory. Like, it seems like, yeah, there probably is a third concept. They probably would like to do it. But yeah, this could be it. There's a lot of stuff on the table for Naughty Dog right now. With Intergalactic, and depending on how that goes. But I also feel like The Last of Us is one of those games where you do kind of, I don't know if they feel this way about The Last of Us, but I kind of do, even as somebody who isn't necessarily like the biggest fan of that IP, is that like that's kind of a technical powerhouse game in some sense. And so like I kind of wonder if the goal with Last of Us Part 3 or The Last of Us in general is to just be like, listen, we'll do Last of Us Part 3 probably, but like we want some new tech for it, you know? Like I feel like Last of Us Part 3 is a PS6 game easily. Would have been obvious regardless, just based on how development timelines work now in our modern era. But yeah, like I feel like that's going to be a next gen game if it exists at all. So like, why even start talking about it now? Especially, we're in territory of like Elder Scrolls 6, you know, where like I wonder if maybe he's regretting having even said anything about it, or even having hinted anything about it, because now it's going to be like the question at the end of every like, oh, I know you're working on Intergalactic now, but like, what about The Last of Us Part 3? And it's like, brother, like, I don't know, this could be it. Just to get people off, maybe, while they focus on this thing that they don't want to steal the spotlight from. That's kind of what it reads like a little bit to me.
I don't read too deeply into it personally, like as a permanent thing. I just think that they're where they are with the HBO show. They have the second season imminent, and they're going to do 4 seasons of that. They have Intergalactic coming out, and then whatever's after that, I guess. So yeah, I understand this as being an interesting story, but I don't. Yeah, taking it at face value, I think, is fine for now. And saying not betting on it, if it does happen, yeah, you're right. It will be almost certainly a PS6 game. Speaking of The Last of Us, this broke right before we started recording, actually, is that they're making a new DualSense controller for PS5 for The Last of Us called The Last of Us Limited Edition. You can begin pre-ordering it March 14th on the PlayStation Direct website. And it says here that it's basically a callback for key moments, characters, and events from both Part 1 and Part 2. I'm not crazy about this controller design. I don't like, this is a subtly loud controller, so I don't want to say it's very loud, but I like just solid colors or a couple colors. This is not for me. So
yeah, I don't like emblems.
Yeah, me neither. Like even just, I'm looking at it now and it's like there's a Firefly emblem on the touchpad, but it's off center and kind of diagonal. It's it would just annoy the shit out of me. So it's cool. I don't feel like people are crazy about this thing though, from what I'm reading just in comments. So we'll see how it does. Are you guys going to buy this thing? Probably not.
No, I have too many DualSense controllers. The emblems on it doesn't bother me. I don't love it, but I don't like that I wish it was all black. The white part with the sticks. Also, white sticks, I feel like they're just going to get nasty.
Yeah, definitely.
So not a fan of that part, but
white triggers too.
White triggers. Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I don't like that aspect of it, and I'm sure people love to collect DualSense though, so I'm sure that this will do really well, but I don't need it.
I only hire lawyers with a cape wrote in and said last minute, so this probably won't be seen. Wrong. What a terrible new controller for The Last of Us. Seems like they couldn't be bothered. Yeah, this seems to be the prevailing opinion about it. But we'll see how it does. And I was thinking, didn't I have a Last of Us controller? But I didn't. What we knew these people back in the day that did these cool stickers for like the touchpad on PS4 and all the rest. And I had a PS4 controller with like the Firefly logo really clean on it. And that I liked. It was a black controller. That worked for me. All right, guys, I thought this was interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the Twisted Metal canceled game, the live service game. This comes from mpfirst.com. And they write, report, canceled Twisted Metal live service title was a battle royale featuring out-of-vehicle combat in third person. So we have some new details here, which is interesting. The game was internally known as Project Copper and was reportedly a battle royale, according to MP First. Quote, gameplay involved third-person shooting mechanics alongside vehicular combat with the objective to be the last one standing. The game was being developed in Unreal Engine 5 and included mechanics like earning credits to avoid elimination. So we knew for a while, this was reported back on VGC and Bloomberg like years ago, that the Twisted Metal game was being developed originally by Lucid, which were the guys that did Destruction All-Stars. And then the game was moved over to Firesprite, the internal team, and was canceled more recently. So already not great if you're changing teams. Sometimes that works. It worked for Final Fantasy VII Remake, for instance, but it doesn't always work. And this website had dug up some images that are blurred and they have like under NDA on them and all of the rest. But these images apparently come from the website of someone who worked on the game as a UI programmer that were scraped by this website, mpfirst.com. So we have a little bit of a look here. There are 4, and we're not going to show them here, obviously, but 4 images. It's a lot of gray box stuff. The character models are just dummies. So it's nothing crazy, but it gives us a little bit of an idea of what they were trying to do. I look at this and I'm like, I don't know if it would have done well or not, but this is kind of cool. I mean, this is maybe more of what you want to be doing. Dustin, what do you think about what we've seen here about the canceled Twisted Metal game?
Looking at these screenshots, I think that if you showed this to a lot of people, it'd be like, oh, this is Fortnite. The way that there's the one screenshot that shows a guy aiming, it looks very similar to Fortnite. A downed character, and Fortnite has vehicles. It's not like a vehicle emphasis necessarily, depending on what type of game mode maybe not type of game mode, but I know vehicles come in and out of the game. So the concept of a battle royale with vehicles is interesting. I'm trying to figure out how the end game would work, because I feel like it's a weird mix where you want to be in vehicles so you're not just run over. So they'd have to balance out the vehicle combat and the third person combat, but obviously this is like the absolute worst way for us to see this game. But my initial impression is like, it's just not unique enough, at least at this point. And if they could release something like this and then Fortnite could be like, we're adding a more focused vehicle combat mode, and then it's over. Like just, oh, there's a free version it's probably better than this. So yeah, just not enough different about it. It would be cool to see the game, what it looked like when it has iconic characters in it and a world that looks like a Twisted Metal world. But these screenshots are just too early to really know.
Yeah, and again, because it's a UI programmer, they're showing the UI mostly, which looks clean. I mean, it's kind of busy. I mean, again, it's all blurred out, but you can see it. And I think they got this because on one of the screenshots, the only screenshot with an actual vehicle in it, it says earn credits to avoid elimination in the corner. So you get a little bit of an idea, but even in the distance, you see like the gray box buildings of the skyline and stuff. So yeah, this is still pretty early.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add, Chris?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Twisted Metal. There is something about getting out of the vehicle in a Twisted Metal game that kind of makes it not feel like Twisted Metal anymore. Like I feel like Twisted Metal is the vehicle stuff. So, and the second you're on foot, you're a million other games, you know. So I don't. This doesn't really. It doesn't look appealing to me at all. But it is also, like Dustin said, the worst possible way to see this.
Yeah, I don't know if it was in the MP First article or if it was somewhere else, but the point was made, and I thought it was interesting. Maybe it was just a comment somewhere, that the Twisted Metal show, which was supposed to kind of sync up with this game, is a lot about the people in the cars and doing things outside of the cars. And maybe they were trying to replicate that experience as opposed to the original Twisted Metal, especially 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but like the Jaffe 1 and 2 games, which were all about the vehicles and the drivers. And then by the time you get to Black, I think they kind of like de-emphasize the drivers and emphasize the vehicles, if I recall correctly. That was or maybe that was the PS3 version actually that did that. That's the PS3 version. That's why people didn't like it as much. And so I think they're just trying to reinvent it for modern audiences, but it might have just been easier to stick with the vehicular combat. This is kind of cool though, in the sense that like I think it sounds neat. Like this was one of the ones where I was like, this is maybe one of the ones in a different universe that would have been worth pursuing.
Right.
Because Twisted Metal is deeply relevant and to PlayStation's fan base, and I think could be an IP that comes back in a more meaningful way if they just did something with it. But it's like one of those IP that's just dangling there that I think could be grabbed at any time. And I thought the Peacock show was pretty good. So I'll look forward to seeing more of that. That should be airing later this year, I think, because I think they've finished filming. All right. So that's that. Twisted Metal details. You can go see the screenshots for yourself at mpfirst.com if it so pleases you. All right. Some more quick things here. The Game Post reports this. Former Bungie lead designer joins Guerrilla Games as design director. Do you know who Chris Proctor is, Chris? Does that name sound familiar to you?
Yeah, it does. Like, so if I'm not mistaken, he's like a relatively recent hire. He's not like, I don't mean in like the last like 2 years or anything, but I think he joined either around the pandemic or like just before the pandemic. So like I remember him being in the conversation around Dead Man's Tale. I think he designed that weapon, I think, from what I can remember. So like he's definitely known. Like people like him. He's like a good person to have on the team. But he's far from like I would say like an instrument. Like he's not like one of the OG like original, you know, Destiny guys or anything like that.
Yeah, here I'm on his Moby Games. The first really relevant stuff he did was Halo 5. So he was
interesting.
At 343, I guess. He did sandbox design for Halo 5 Guardians and Forge, and then worked on design for a multiplayer and campaign Halo Infinite, and then came over and has Witch credits in the Witch Queen is his first credit. So that would be 22. So yeah, it says here on the website he joined Horizon developer Guerrilla Games as a design director, and it says, quote, Chris Proctor, a longtime Bungie designer known for shaping some of Destiny 2's most iconic weapons, has officially joined Guerrilla Games as a design director. This news comes straight from Proctor himself, who updated his LinkedIn profile to reflect his new role. However, he didn't reveal which project he'll be working on. Proctor's career at Bungie spanned over 5 years, during which he played a key role in crafting the game's weapon sandbox. If you use Dead Man's Tale, Cloudstrike, Forerunner, or Osteo-Striga, you've seen his work in action. He started at Bungie as a staff designer in 2019, before becoming sandbox craft lead in 2024. Before that, he worked at Halo Studios, which was not called Halo Studios then, contributing to Halo Infinite and Halo 5 Guardians. So it's assumed that he's going to work on the Horizon multiplayer game. Dustin, we don't know that for sure. Maybe he's working on Killzone. Doubt. How does that strike you?
Yeah. Well, it seems like they are just, extracting people from Bungie, though. It says Ex-Bungie. So did he move from Bungie directly to Guerrilla?
Yeah. It says here he announced his departure in February from Bungie. So this was this was February 5th. So it's probably all connected, I would imagine. And you're right. Sony's been pillaging Bungie of talent. So
yeah, makes you wonder about long-term future for Bungie if they're just taking all the good people out, taking out projects that look good and taking them internal teams. It's like, just seems rough waters ahead for Bungie potentially. Hopefully, Marathon ends up.
Marathon's gotta hit.
It's gotta hit, yeah. But yeah, we'll see about this Horizon multiplayer game. I am, depending on how it works out, I personally think a Horizon multiplayer game, if it's good, I will like it more than standard Horizon. If it's like a cool Monster Hunter like game, and even an MMO might be kind of neat. So very interested in those other projects. It's been a year since we had our last Horizon game released.
It's time.
It's time. They got to keep the factory going. So where is it at?
It's time. Well, we'll see what happens there. I wonder what a hiring of someone like that bodes for the state of the game in terms of where it is. Like, is he the kind of designer you bring on late to work around the edges and do these kind of, I don't know Destiny well enough to know what the nature of those particular contributions were, because I'm just curious where this game is in development. And I'm of the mind that I agree with you, Dustin. I think I like Horizon a lot more than you guys do, but I think it's a gameplay masterpiece. And if they double down, the gameplay is what's fucking universally, in my opinion, excellent about it. Whether you're into the dinosaurs and the story and all that is another thing, but the gameplay is great. So if you could take advantage of that, look at Monster Hunter, which we're going to talk about very shortly. You can have something very similar. All right, a couple other things to get through quickly. This happened. This news happened when we were recording last week, so it's not new news, but let's add it to the Sacred Symbols record nonetheless. Forza Horizon 5 has an April 29th release date. You can start playing it April 25th if you pre-order it. Who's going to get got for this 4-year-old game? Unknown. I'm sure a lot of people will. It is $60, I want to say. People are kind of surprised by this, but I'm like, no, Microsoft can, will, and should charge full price for these games that they're migrating over. Why would you add insult to injury and give it to people for $30? People are already upset that it's PS5 Pro enabled, so it's going to be the best version of the game, basically. At least on console. Are either of you going to play Forza Horizon 5 when it comes to PS5 April 29th? You both play on Xbox, so you've had your opportunities these past few years.
Yeah. I played Forza Horizon 5 already for a fair bit. I actually played it for way longer than I thought I would. It is very good, but that's a very specific kind of game, it's like
an open world racing game. Is that how I understand it?
Yeah,
right? Yeah. That's interesting.
And it's cool. It plays really well. It looks really great, but it's got a limited depth for somebody like me who's just more interested in different types of games, I think.
Yeah, we'll see how this does. It's already got quite a few pre-orders anecdotally on my PSN list. I think this is going to be their biggest one so far. Maybe even bigger than Sea of Thieves. We'll see. People really speak highly of this game as being maybe the best Xbox game of the generation in some sense. So it's exciting, and I wonder. It's not a mainline Forza game. It's a playground Forza game, which I understand. So it's not directly competing with Gran Turismo, but it's just weird. I do wonder how Polyphony feels. As I've said in the past, when I talked to Kazunori about Drive Club, he didn't seem too thrilled. So I wonder how he feels about Forza coming over. And certainly this is priming for the release of a mainline Forza game, I would assume, a turn 10 Forza game in the future, whether it's a previous one or day and date with whatever there were. What would it be, Forza 7? Right? I don't even know.
I lost track. So many.
It's so interesting. Forza what I remember about Forza, and I think this is true, is that it was a very late Xbox, original Xbox game. And I think people thought that Project Gotham was going to be kind of the thing. And I think Forza ultimately became obviously a huge mainstay going all the way through to today. People love cars, dude. I mean, just having a racing series like that and a licensed racing series is just so huge. And I think it was really smart for them to split it up and do a mainline thing and something spin off. We haven't had a Polyphony spin off since fucking Tourist Trophy, which a lot of people probably don't even know what that is. That's a motorcycle racing game on PS2. Ever since then, Polyphony has only made Gran Turismo games, and it would be cool for them to do spin-offs of their own. But I guess they're highly focused and obsessed over rear view mirrors and tire textures and whatever the fuck it is that they... do you guys remember back in the day? They're much more careful now, but Gran Turismo would leak. Every new Gran Turismo game would leak because it would be we were at whatever raceway and there was a bunch of Japanese guys taking pictures of the most intricate shit.
Yeah,
and they're like,
they're working on Gran Turismo.
Right,
cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I think not A spec, but probably 4, 5, and 6 all leaked like that. And Sport.
That's so funny.
All right. This comes from the Twitter account Charlie Intel, which is a well-known Call of Duty centric Twitter account and website and kind of like ecosystem. This is not a huge surprise, but I wanted to get your guys' gauge on this. They write, quote, Call of Duty 2025 could still release on PS4 and Xbox One per sources. Supporting last gen in 2025 is a wild decision, but the game is in development for the old consoles from what we've heard. This may be a reason as to why there can't be 2 big maps in Warzone at the same time. End quote. I've also been hearing things about Warzone maybe going kind of being the beginning of the end of Warzone itself. I don't know if you guys know more about this stuff. So let's go to you first. How do you feel about this? I feel like this is obvious in some sense. It's unfortunate because it means everything's being pegged to this console from 2013. But they would be crazy to walk away from releasing games on PS4. I'm sure they sell most of their games on new generation consoles and PC, but yeah, PS4 and Xbox One, I'm sure, are still vibrant places. Remember, fucking EA released Star Wars Jedi Survivor like out of nowhere on PS4 a year later, just to kind of extract more money out of it. So I'm not so surprised about that. But what's going on with Warzone as well? Catch me up on this.
I'm not super caught up, but I do know what you're talking about. That I think they're bringing back an old map, and the player numbers, to my understanding, are down, and they're kind of like waiting to see if this old map will revitalize it, and if it doesn't, then Warzone could be going away. As I saw some tweets about that, so I don't want to speak on any kind of authority. As far as Call of Duty still appearing on PS4, they're the one that have the sales data of how Black Ops 6 sold on PS4, and I'm sure that they made plenty of money on there, and they're looking at this and they're like, well, it was worth it for us last time, so it's probably going to continue to be worth it. I wonder if one of the things that could make a difference is with GTA 6 being current gen only, is that going to be the game that convinces enough PS4 owners to switch over that we could finally see the death of, not the death of PS4 games in general, because I think we'll continue, especially smaller games, appear on PS4, but will that be the death of modern AAA on PS4?
Yeah, maybe. It's interesting, man, because I still think it can't be overstated how Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to push PS5. Even if there's no explicit bundle, even if there's no explicit advertising, it is going to be the biggest beneficiary, way more than Xbox. Because I think people are just waiting, like you're saying, for the thing. So maybe it will push people over, but I still think even if it does, like, the unfortunate reality is these machines all kind of exist together, and until there's a reasonable financial expectation that you're going to release games there to the tune of millions of sales, then it's just hard to walk away from. What are your thoughts here, Chris? Do you have anything you want to share?
I mean, it's just I'm just left with just disappointment, I guess. I'm just I really just kind of assumed at some point, and maybe this is like naive in some way, and it probably is, that the way that console lifespans would kind of continue to be, just at like varying degrees. But like it's very clear now that development costs are so high, and there are so many people kind of either locked into the old ecosystems, whether it be by like financial reality or economic reality, whatever, that the incentive is just to meet everybody where they're at instead of, pushing things forward, which is, that's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. It means more people get to participate. There's new stuff available for everybody, but it means the new stuff that we do get is undoubtedly hampered. I don't really know how to feel about it, but I'm left with kind of just a general kind of just like, damn, really? That's kind of what I come away with it with.
It sucks. But I think I get it though. I'm not like mad about it from an economic point of view. I just wonder how long this can conceivably go on. As we noted about MLB The Show, Sony stopped releasing it on PS2 in 2012 was the last year. So that's 12 years in. So we are in that exact space right now with this distant from PS4's launch. And we'll see how that all goes. I don't know.
We shall see.
I will say the PS4 versions have an advantage for trophy hunters because they all have platinum trophies. Call of Duty games don't have platinums anymore. I don't know if you guys know that. It all gets nestled in to this new PS5 nest. And people are really pissed about it. People like me, not normal people. All right. We've talked about this so long that I don't think we really need to linger on it too long. But yes, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 are being remade. They're being remade by Iron Galaxy, published by Xbox own publisher Activision, and are coming to both PS5 and PS4 on July 11th. Of course, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 was a PS2 game from 2001. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 was a PS2 game from 2002, and both are widely beloved. Although, as I've said ad nauseum at this point, these are not my Tony Hawk games. The first two were my Tony Hawk games, so I don't really remember this. Now, as I understand, people are a little upset about something, particularly about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, in that it seems like so. And I remember this vaguely. That Tony Hawk. Did you guys play 3 or 4?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Okay.
These were my Tony Hawk games,
right? Okay, so you know,
from my era.
4 was like kind of a more of an weird open world thing that I think they really started to take more advantage of with like Thug later on, and 3 was more of a traditional game, like a transitionary game, and I guess 4 has apparently been remade in the style of 3, wherein it'll be more about 2-minute sessions and less about all the other things, the trappings of 4. So I know this has bothered some people, but I don't know. Doesn't mean anything to me. Since you're a fan, Dustin, what are your thoughts?
Well, to be honest, I'm mostly a fan of 3. I've played 4 at friends' houses, so I don't know what you're talking about as far as the format being different. But yeah, I'm super excited about this. Colin, Dustin was right moment. I said that the Doomslayer would be in it.
Very cool.
Since he was in the PC version, I was right. But making you pay for it. It's only, I think it's deluxe edition only. They might get me with that. They might get me, especially because, dude, you can be, is it the Revenant, Chris?
Yeah. The Revenant.
You can be the Revenant. They put out a clip that they have a special move where he pulls out a trumpet and says "doot," like the meme, the "doot" meme. And I was like, okay,
cool.
You got me on that one. But I'm so excited for this, dude. The trailer having Ace of Spades, because I believe that's the opening song in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. Very nostalgic. They got me on this one.
Yeah.
Hopefully Iron Galaxy, as we talked about in one of the last 3 weeks where we talked about this, hopefully they do a good job. And I'm excited. I'm definitely there day one for this.
It's worth noting because it's an Activision game. It'll also enter into Game Pass.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a 3-day early access period beginning July 8th if you pre-order.
There you go.
Chris, are you going to jump in? I'm not going to jump into this because I didn't really even fully explore Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. So I think if I were to the remakes, if I were to be interested in playing a skating game, I would just go back to those first. So I'm not going to buy this, but are you?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I am kind of in the same realm as you, where like I haven't really finished the 1 and 2 either. I'm really terrible at those games, I guess. But
I am too. I've never been very good at them. I've enjoyed them, but I've never been very talented at them.
Yeah, I realize now that I played those games for the vibes primarily. You know what I mean? And then I would.
Oh, the vibes are immaculate.
The vibes are immaculate, and you sit there and you're skating through like some old college campus or some old airplane hangar, and you're not really doing anything of any skill level or any consequence, but you got good music playing. You know, you get the tactile kind of audio design of like skates and grinding and real. It's just like a good experience. But when I was playing 1 and 2 as an adult for the first time, I was like, oh shit, I was not playing this game correctly at all when I was a child. And so I don't know. I'm still really, really early on 1 and 2, but I'm definitely going to buy this I like that this is happening again. And I like seeing Doom Guy in there. It reminds me a lot of like some of the stuff that you used to see in those games, like when Spider-Man would be in it. And I feel like we don't really see things like that anymore. So even though, those used to be cheat codes and you got to pay for it now. That sucks. It's such is the nature of things, but it's cool that it's there. I'm into it. Yeah. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Hopefully they'll get all of the music. Again, as I said last week, I'll be interested to see which songs they can't get. I believe 4 were missing.
Yeah.
THPS 1 and 2.
I hope they can do I think 1 and 2 did really well, where they had like a lot of good a lot of like the originals and the one that they couldn't get, they had some new stuff in there that like really, really worked really well. So if they could do anything, I know Iron Galaxy has like a bit of it's kind of all over the place. Like you kind of don't know. It's kind of a crapshoot in some way. Like this could be really great and this could be kind of like okay. But I'm hoping that it's a good one.
All right, couple more pieces of news to get through here. Monster Hunter Wilds has surpassed 8 million copies sold in 3 days. Capcom announced that, quote, Capcom Company Limited today announced that worldwide sales of Monster Hunter Wilds, released on February 28th, 2025, surpassed 8 million units in 3 days, which is the fastest the title has reached this milestone in the company's history. Incredible success. Just Kyle92 wrote in and said, hey boys, not a Monster Hunter guy myself, but just seeing that Wild sold 8 million in 3 days, that is crazy numbers. Is it deserving of this success? Also, I love that Capcom is back in full force, all ready for a new Resident Evil. Thank you for reading and have a great fucking day. Thank you. I guess we'll put this pin in this for now. Since we're going to talk about it and what we're playing, but just wanted to acknowledge that up front. And then finally, I wanted to bring you guys your attention to this game. I saw the press release for this and I wanted to show it to you. So 4A Games, which is the Ukrainian studio behind Metro, has apparently split off in some way. So 4A Games, I think even before the war, started working in like Malta, but afterwards has moved to other countries to continue to work on Metro. And then I think that there were some people behind on the team still working out of Ukraine, and some of those people have spun off into a new studio called Reburn. And they are working on a first-person shooter called La Quimera. And it's a sci-fi shooter set in a futuristic Latin America. Looks fucking sick. Just wanted to put this on people's radar. Guys, what game does this remind you of? Please tell me.
It's Killzone, baby.
You think so? I was going to say something else. It could be.
When I saw this, I was like, oh, this kind of like the guns reminded me like Shadowfall or something.
Oh yeah, I could see that for sure. But I wonder. I guess I'm not getting into the.
I kind of felt like Crysis almost.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just because Crysis had like the tropical Central American sort of like.
Yep.
The first one, which I love that first game. But yeah, I can see the Killzone as well. Says, quote, La Quimera takes place across a breathtaking Latin American megalopolis and lush jungle setting where the player steps into the customizable exosuit of a down-on-their-luck PMC soldier battling against rival factions. The world and narrative of La Quimera is written and created by Nicholas Winding Refn and E.J.A. Warren, combining Latin American folklore with highly advanced weaponry and technology.
What?
What?
That's crazy.
You know these people?
That's
Nicholas Winding Refn, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in Death Stranding, right?
Yeah, he is. He's a director.
Okay. He's Hart. Okay. And then who's E.J.A. Warren? You know, I don't know that name.
I don't know that one, but I know that Nicholas Winding Refn is like a literal. He's a director, I'm pretty sure. But like,
oh yeah, he worked on Drive. It says.
Yeah, I think so.
It says Drive and the Neon Demon in the press release of things that he worked on.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want people to go check this out. I think this is something worth paying attention to. I love my first person shooters. So, any thoughts? But I'm so glad at least one of you saw Crysis, because I was like, oh, this is like Crysis.
Yeah, it was one of the first things I thought of, because it's just like it looked visually like this is crazy. Like it kind of felt like, can your PC run this kind of energy? Where I was like, oh fuck, I don't know. It does have. As I've gotten older, I do think I've leaned more into like I prefer readability over graphical fidelity, and some parts of this make me worry, where I'm just like, I don't know how readable this game is going to be to play, because everything looks so good, but it looks fucking awesome, and the fact that it's not only set in Latin America, but that it's titled as such is interesting. Like that's a very interesting thing to do, especially for. I don't know. It's so interesting to see a studio spun off from a Ukrainian studio make a game about Latin America that's named as if it was made in Latin America. It's interesting. I don't know. Cool. It's very strange. It reminds me a little bit of, not exactly, but like Ghost of Tsushima, where it's just like, oh, it's interesting to see this kind of, translation happening. So yeah, my eyes are on this for sure. Very weird.
It's worth noting, just for people out there that might be looking for it on the PSN, it's not been announced for PlayStation or any console. It's only been announced for PC, but it's impossible to imagine it's not going to come to console. So I just wanted to put it out there as something interesting to keep an eye on. La Quimera. And I'm so desperate for things that don't take place in normal. Like, I'm so sick of the Japan setting. I'm so sick of the United States setting. I'm so sick of this and that, and the fantasy and all that. It's like, God, just give me something that's a little different. And I know it invokes things like Killzone and Crisis, but it's still distinct. And
yeah,
I'm just desperate for things that feel a little different.
I think Latin America is technically biased, but I think Latin America is a pretty fun setting for things generally. Like, I don't know, there's something about it. I think it's just like the flavor of music that you get is like distinct in video games, especially like Just Cause and even just like Mercenaries 2 and Far Cry 6, and just like there's something interesting about these games aesthetically and like vibe wise that I don't think is like really common or easily like replicatable.
All right, that's it for the smaller news items. We have bigger news items we'll get to in a minute, but let's get into what we're playing in the meantime. Dustin, so Chris, it says you're not playing anything because you've been sick.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing the same things that I have been playing, so there's really not much to say. But even the stuff that I have been playing, I've been playing very limited amounts of because I've just been obviously laying down. But I'm trying to. Is there anything coming out in like the next week? Because I feel like there is, but I don't know.
Split Fiction is out today.
That's right. Yeah, that's the one I want to get to.
Suikoden 1 and 2, not that you would want to play this, is out today.
Yeah, Split Fiction was the thing I was thinking of. Yeah. Like that's the one that I wanted to at least get a little bit of time in with, but like no. Not yet.
All right, so that's that then. Yeah, we'll leave you there for now. Dustin, let's get into what you're playing.
Sure. Yesterday on a whim, I was just browsing the PlayStation Store, redeeming my copy of Dragon Age the Veilguard to never play, as one does with the PSN.
Right.
And I saw that Sayonara Wild Hearts, some of you may remember this game from Simogo, I think is the studio, and Annapurna a few years back. They have a PS5 version of it now that you can check out. I believe it's part of PlayStation Plus Premium or Premium/Extra. I was like, oh, why not? And so I sat down and played a little bit of it, which I played this years ago. And I ended up playing the entire game because it's not very long. I think it's maybe an hour at most.
Oh, wow.
This game rules. It is really fun. And it's one of those games that, I mean, the gameplay is pretty simple overall. You're like going through, whether you're driving a motorcycle, your character's flying around, you're collecting hearts and stuff like that. It's pretty simple gameplay, but you're really there for the visuals, the music. I think they described it as a pop album game, and that's exactly what it is. I highly recommend it. If you're just looking for something short, fun, and in for the cool visuals and the cool music, Sayonara Wild Hearts, lovely little game. But it's important, but not as important as Monster Hunter Wilds that just came out last week, and I've been playing that. I have completed, well, I'm not really sure. I got to the credits last night, but I looked up how many chapters there are in the game, and there's 6. But you get the end credits at the end of chapter 3. So I've semi-completed the game. But Monster Hunter fans know the game really begins once you beat this story section. So now it's on to the much harder high rank quests and monster hunts and stuff like that. I'm playing on PC, and that's been a big negative for this experience. The PC version, if you have crazy expensive hardware, which I do, I have a 4090, it's running pretty well. But the game still has lots of issues on PC. The textures, even if you download the 70 gigabyte 4K texture pack, still look like shit sometimes. I don't know if they're just not loading right, but they just aren't very. There's something about them that isn't right. The frame rate, while I'm getting around 90 to 100 on 4K with DLSS on quality, it doesn't look smooth. I don't know if it's a frame pacing issue, something like that. There's lots of technical problems. It crashed on me 2 or 3 times when loading in. Overall, it's not that it's unplayable. I finished the game. I had a fantastic time playing it, but it's just very disappointing. I buy my multiplayer games on PC just so I have easy access to Discord, looking things up. It's just where I'm most comfortable playing a multiplayer game. But to my understanding, PS5 Pro players are having a fantastic time with this, at least from what I've seen online. So that's the ideal place to play it. You have that. But unfortunately, that's not where I'm at. Overall, I really like it. I'm having a great time. The monsters in this, of course, are excellent. I've switched over. I was a longsword player when I played Rise, but now I'm playing with the insect glaive. And so I'm doing lots of like vaulting.
Oh, the insect glaive.
Oh, the insect glaive. What about the twin blades? So I'm having fun learning this new weapon. I've pretty much been using that exclusively just because there's so much depth to each weapon that you choose that you can spend hours and hours and hours learning how to use them, which I really like. The story is fine. I was trying to think about it because I was really bored throughout most of it, but there's nothing wrong with it. You know, it's just not necessary to have a story in these games. You can have like a loose structure around the missions, but this has a lot of voice acting, all these characters, ancient civilization, things like that. And I'm like, I'm just an ancient civilization.
Ancient civilizations.
The ancient ones.
There's nothing about the story that's low quality. It just doesn't need to be there. I guess if it's boring, it's low quality to some degree. But yeah, I'm really excited now that I'm done with that. I can start to get into the more difficult technical stuff of the game. We have like a Last Stand squad set up that I posted about on Twitter. If you try to join it now, you can't. There's a limited only 50 slots available, which I didn't realize that when I made it. In a week or so time, I'll go in. If you haven't logged in a week, you're out.
Yeah.
You're getting booted because we want to get more players in. It's been really fun though, because when you're in the squad, you can join like a squad lobby. And then so when I'm doing hunts and I send out my SOS, other members of the Last Stand community can just join in and play and help me, which has been really fun. So I've been playing with the community. I have discovered, and you guys may have seen this on Twitter, Capcom lets you edit the text in the stickers you can put in chat. So I have one that is the old Vine meme that just says, it has a girl like this and it says, "So no head." And so I've been putting that one. There's a guy that looks like this, and I made it say, "I'm off the perk." And so one of them I also just put "show pee-pee." And so I've been using that on our audience, and I was like, hopefully they understand. I just always like, we'll kill a monster and I'll put "show pee-pee."
Sure.
So
you're having a good time.
You're running around with me. You might get hit.
You're having a good time.
Pee-pee.
Good for you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really good. It's frustrating with the PC situation because it's one of those things where it's like, man, if it was bad on PC, shouldn't have supported them and bought it there.
PC gamers get what they deserve.
In this case, yeah, it's like, oh, you spent $2,000 on your PC. Here's the worst fucking version of the game. Enjoy it.
Here's this trash.
So yeah, pretty annoying. So in that sense, it's like, man, I want to put my money where my mouth is, but this is the type of game where Brad's playing it now. My friend Brandon, Ben's playing it right now. All my friends are playing it right now. So if I was to wait, then I'm going to have no one to play with because I'm going to be, a basic bitch when I join in a few weeks' time. So my hands are tied. They got me. But overall, really fun game. I'm excited to dive in more. I'll have more to say in the weeks to come. But yeah, let me know if you're one of the hunters out there. I'll try to purge the Last Stand squad of the noobs and the fakers that are just there, that joined and then quit. We'll purge them out.
Get rid of them. Get them out of here.
Get them out.
All right, very well. Yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds, as we said earlier, huge hit. Congratulations to Capcom. I'm pleased that everyone is enjoying it, and as long as you can get the game functioning, of course. And God, I'm just rooting for them to continue doing a great job. I mean, this will ultimately lead to. It won't lead to it. It's a much less important game, but this will get us a Mega Man game. The kind of money that they're making here is like, come on, man. The luck is that they're killing it, right? Resident Evil is doing great, and then they're going to release like the worst Mega Man game you've ever seen in your life. Like they'll do it.
Yeah.
Colin, one other thing I wanted to mention from last week, because I saw some people tweeted about me. I saw people discussing this. Last week, I highly recommend people check out Civ 7.
Yeah.
Despite the mixed feedback.
Yeah, that's okay.
I still do, but I'm getting reports. The game on PS5, very inconsistent.
Oh, okay.
Some people having no problems. Other people are having so many crashes that Sony is allowing refunds for this game.
This is the Returnal paradox.
Yeah. But it's so bad for some people that Sony, if you go and ask them for a refund, they'll give it to you in their chat. So,
wow,
something to keep in mind. I recommend Civ 7. I just to correct what I said, I highly recommend Civ 7 on PC. I cannot speak for the PS5 version. Do your research.
Yeah, it's up to you.
It's up to you. But I was it's disappointing to hear that it's fucking broken for some people.
Yeah, that sucks.
So
get your money back if that's you. All right, for me, non-binary robot wrote in. Said, hey crew, quick question. What the fuck is Colin playing? Never heard of it. Play a real game, like Madden. The last week I've spent with a little stealth game called Evo Tinction. And Evo Tinction is a China, a PlayStation China hero game. And it's from a developer in China called Spikewave. It is published by a publisher called Astrolabe. And this is a stealth game that no one has played. And I got to say, Chris, again, this was reminding me of you, the same with the last couple of games I've been talking about where I'm like, it's just easier to tell you on the show is like, I think you would really like this game. I don't know. I got it for $17. I think it is normally $30. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like it's worth it even at $30, but basically what it is it's a, first of all, it is heavily inspired by, I mean, you could just tell by the music and it's Metal Gear. It's not nearly as good as Metal Gear. I don't want to be clear, but you could tell that the aesthetic, the music, these guys are very influenced by Metal Gear. And it's about a doctor, Dr. Liu, who is working in this research facility where they're working on this really amazing AI, and the AI goes rogue. And everything happens quickly like this. It's not super spoilery to tell you, like, what you kind of discover is, what's cool about it and what you discover is that, like, they position, like, the AI is secretly positioning itself to take everything over so that when it's ready to, like, flip the switch, it happens instantaneously. So they discover basically that, like, all of the seeds were set for this to happen to them. And so, like, there's nothing they can really do. And it's about this specific doctor in this research facility that's trying to slink around, and you're basically dealing with robots. Like orb robots, like all defensive robots, like roaming robots. It's really interesting. And you deal with them with, like, not with guns or anything, but with, like, technologies. Like, you can disable them. You can scan barcodes on them, which is really cool. If, like, you can sneak up behind them and, like, scan a barcode, you can, like, disable it, and, like, the robot, like, collapses. It's super cool. It's not finally made completely. Like, one of the things you can tell is there's nobody in the game. It's like you and the robots. And when there is, and it's a little bit spoiler, but not really. It's like when you finally see another human, you're like, oh, this doesn't look very good anymore. But there's a style to this game. It's like Death Stranding-ish. It's got a little bit of control in it, I think, in terms of the facility you're in. It's pretty cool. And I was wondering, like, why. I understand why some games don't get a lot of shine and they kind of just come and go. But it really seems like this game, like, no one played it. It has 152 reviews on Steam. And I'm like, yeah, this game is better than that. I mean, it's certainly better than some of the stuff we've been talking about and playing recently. And so I wanted to recommend it. I think it's really good. I think you got to go in understanding it's linear. Basically, it's like story beats. Sure. You find audio files and different documents, and then you'll get into, like, a combat section where you're, like, in an office part and you have to, like, sneak through. You can sneak through, you can disable all the robots, you can trap them and do all sorts of things. And you have all these different technologies that you work with. There's upgrade trees and skills you learn. And a major Metal Gear part of it is there's basically, like, a VR missions component to it as well. So, like, you go to these different computer terminals and you can, like, dick around with all of your different tools and do all these tasks and get S rankings to unlock currency that you use to unlock more stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cyclical in that way. I beat it in about 10 hours. And I recommend it. Yeah, I think this is a game you should definitely look at, Chris, in your travels around these different video game ecosystems. I don't know how you'd feel about it, but I think you would actually kind of like it. I think that the vibe of the game and the setting of the game is really, really cool. And it's very dystopian in that all of the different services, like the different companies and the different things they're doing, are called like more, here, like all. So they play with language a lot in the acronyms and stuff. Yeah, it's cool. It's really, really cool.
Yeah,
it's a really neat game. I don't know why they didn't believe in it more.
I don't know. I think. I know the reason I just haven't checked it out yet is just because the name is just horrible.
Oh, it's bad. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's supposed to be like evolution and extinction or something.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's really authentic. Like, I don't know how much Evo tinking you do in that game, but like I don't imagine that it's.
You don't do a lot. No.
Yeah, not a lot of Evo tinking in Evo Tinction. I think the two reasons that I haven't checked this game out yet really is just like the name sounds terrible, which I understand is like a really bad reason, but also there's just so much else to play. But the name was just like not all that interesting, and I think I did see gameplay of it, and it looked a little janky, and it looked like I just remember seeing like, oh, this is exclusively robots, and being like, that's not bad, but like there's something about robot enemies that. I don't know. Like, just robot enemies is like a little underwhelming to me in anything. But I see what you're saying. Like scanning barcodes and like doing all that kind of thing. Like, I could see that being fun. I just haven't gotten around to grabbing it.
It's just that there's like cool, tense moments with the barcode where like the enemy, like the orb, like turns around, its eyes are like on the other way, and then you know it's going to turn around, and you're like standing behind it, quietly scanning the barcode, and it's like, and like you're like, oh my god, like. Before it turns around and finds you, because the cool thing about it, it's kind of like Metal Gear with this is like you get seen and you should just go to the last checkpoint. Like the part of the game is like doing it nicely, like really being like wrapping it up, and you can hack from afar and do all. It's pretty cool game Evo Tinction. I wanted to put it on people's radars. Look at video, research it yourself, but I think it's a good buy. I wish it was on sale for a while, and I wish I realized earlier, because I bought it like the last day or two that it was on sale. And at $17, it's a definite recommendation. At $30, it's a little steeper, but still, there's a new game plus. I'm going to leave it on my console. Maybe I'll go back to it and platinum it, but I don't know. There's some collectibles I missed and some things, so I'd have to go back. But there's just too many other things to play. I just don't think it's a good use of time, but we'll see. Speaking of bad uses of time, I also started playing Power Wash Simulator's DLC. So I ebb and flow with Power Wash Simulator. And I was looking at my trophies, and I last played it in July. And I did the DLC packs, like the SpongeBob. Remember, I was telling you I'd never seen an episode of SpongeBob, but I did the SpongeBob DLC. And then there was like another DLC pack I did. And then I bought the Warhammer DLC. And I did all of that over the summer. And then the last thing is like this big craft. And it's so fucking tedious. It's just so tedious. It's the most tedious map in Power Wash, and it put me off. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. I'll do this at some other point. So I left it on my cross media bar, and after I beat Evo Tinction, I'm like, what do I want to do? I was actually thinking about getting back to Tactics Ogre, which I never beat, and doing some other stuff. And I was like, maybe I'll fuck around with Power Wash. So I booted up the Warhammer stuff and finally finished the ship. It took me a few hours, I want to say, to do it. And I find, God, Power Wash Simulator is so zen. It's so good. Do you guys play? I don't remember.
I've played it before, but my level of hitting tediousness was much lower than yours.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. The ship is tedious because it's got all these little divots and rounded edges and all. It was fucking crazy, man. I hope that I hope they like got bad feedback on that. We're like, it can't be like this. The maps can be big. But I don't want to get into the crevices of shit like I'm really working a job or something. I was like, Jesus Christ. But there is something so zen about it for me. And so I was getting back into it. And so I got the first 3 DLC packs. What are they? I'm just going to look them up real quick if you don't mind. Because I want to make sure that, because they are good. And each of them is $7 if you're interested in checking them out. Okay, so the first DLC pack, we have SpongeBob and then Back to the Future. And then Warhammer. So I did all of those. I got the trophies for all of those. Then I went last night and I bought the 4th DLC pack. There's 6 of them. This is for Alice in Wonderland, which I like. It's called Alice's Adventures Special Pack, and I did the first stage of it last night before I went to bed. The fifth one that I'll get to, so I might do Alice in Wonderland and then put it back on the shelf for a while, but eventually I'll get to these other ones. So Shrek is number 5, and then Wallace and Gromit is number 6. So I know Wallace and Gromit, but I'm familiar. What I should say is I'm familiar with Wallace and Gromit, but I don't really know I don't know what it is really, or I know what it is, but you know what I mean. And then Shrek, as I said, I've never played Shrek or never seen a Shrek movie in my entire life, so I'm going to play the Shrek DLC. I might be the only person in the world that plays the Shrek DLC without having ever seen Shrek. And wasn't there a controversy around Shrek recently that I saw?
Yeah, the Shrek new teaser.
The teaser, they look weird.
Oh, okay. I don't know enough about it. I will get to it. I've heard earnestly, and from you guys and others, it's like, dude, you'd love Shrek. Like, Shrek is just really good. And I'm like, yeah, I believe it. For some reason, I think it might have came out when I was in high school. I don't really remember. But I just never saw it. And I never really cared to. I'm not a big, it's weird being Dagon's brother in the sense that I'm not really a big animation guy. Like, I don't really look forward to watching animation like I would live action stuff, which I also don't really look forward to. So anyway, Power Wash Simulator DLC, Evo Tinction, knock those bad boys out. I'm still waiting for the games that I'm looking forward to come out. So I'm going to keep using this time to bang through some other stuff. I don't know exactly. What do I have in my cross media bar right now? I downloaded a few things. I did claim, like you did, Dustin, I claimed Dragon Age, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. No.
I also claimed, I owned the TMNT game, but there was another game this month that I claimed.
Sonic?
Yeah, Sonic. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, I don't know why I'm claiming this because I'm never playing this game. But you feel good when you get it. You know, maybe times will be rough one day and I'll be like, I have nothing to play except for Sonic Colors.
Sonic Colors. Imagine how down bad Colin Moriarty would have to be to play Sonic Colors.
I haven't played a Sonic game since Sonic Heroes, which I fucking hated. And actually, it goes to show you how much I hate Sonic is that I wrote the strategy guide for that as a freelancer when I was in college, and I asked to be taken off the game. Like midway through, I'm like, could I just not do this? And they're like, dude, you signed the contract. Like, you gotta just finish the fucking guide. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't make me do this. Why did I sign up for this? I just needed money, and that was what was available. Like, we would go and look at what the games were and and claim them. And I think everything was claimed or whatever. I'm like, all right, I guess I got to do Sonic Heroes on GameCube. Great.
That's so funny that everybody left that for you.
Yeah, they just let that linger. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what was cool about it. And that was kind of early-ish in my career. So like later on you would get first dibs and that was nice. But not at that point. No, sir. All right, my friends, let's get into the news. What do we have? 3 items this week, I think? 4 items. Nothing too big, but things worth writing out and getting into. One of the stories is so strange. I really want to get into that, but we'll save that for last. Number 1, it's another week. So it's time to talk about more Xbox games coming to PlayStation 5, and this time we're cutting close to the bone. According to reliable Spanish leaker is it Extasis? It's written in the 90s nomenclature. You know what I mean? What was that famous gamer from 20 years ago that had the name? It was like Silencer or something. Do you know what I'm talking about? He was like the first famous video game, like competitive video game player, and he had like one of those names. God, man. If you knew who I was talking about, you'd be like, oh, I'll look him up when I kick over to you guys. Yeah. But according to reliable Spanish leaker Extasis, a Gears of War collection is indeed en route to PlayStation 5 and will launch later this year. As website Push Square notes, the same leaker is the person who first leaked Forza Horizon 5's entry onto PS5, amongst other details of note, and so we can deem him reliable, at least for the sake of conversation. According to him, the collection will be revealed at an Xbox event this summer for release at some point later in the year, and it will arrive day and date on PS5 along with Xbox platforms. What the leaker doesn't know, however, is which games are included in this collection. It's long been postulated that such a compilation would include the Epic-developed Gears games, meaning the original Xbox 360 trilogy that spanned from 2006 to 2011. Gears is arguably the most famous third-person shooter in history and certainly the most beloved cover-based shooter series, full stop, and those first games are most often deemed essential. The original Gears of War launched on Xbox 360 in late 2006 and was arguably the first truly seminal game on the console, with an iconic advertising campaign and a feverish devotion to its online functionality, both competitive and co-op, even introducing the so-called Horde mode into our lexicon. The first game was followed up by Gears of War 2 only 2 years later in 2008, and a third entrant would arrive in the back half of 2011. Interestingly, however, all 3 games and the IP itself weren't owned outright by Microsoft until 2014, and so rumors of Gears ports to PlayStation aren't exactly new. Indeed, you can easily find extensive footage of Gears 3 running on PlayStation 3. I think the entire game. Part of an apparent Unreal Engine 3 related exercise at the series' original studio Epic, which also owns the engine. At that point, Epic bowed out of Gears entirely, while Xbox Studio, the Coalition, took over for Gears of War 4, which launched in 2016. That's the last one I played. I didn't beat it, but that's the last one I played of any kind. Gears 5 followed in 2019, also from the Coalition. It's assumed those two games won't be included in a collection, though they may be released later, along with the controversial 2013 Gears spin-off Judgment, which was developed by People Can Fly. The reason for this assumption is that Gears of War E-Day, the new Gears game that's a prequel set more than a decade before the original game, is likewise widely rumored to be coming to PlayStation 5 upon launch either later this year or more likely in 2026. This is the one, guys, that I've been waiting for. Because as I've said ad nauseum over the years, I like Gears of War. In fact, I remember very clearly seeing the commercial for the first time before a movie with the Mad World cover, which I've said before is, I think, the greatest game ad ever. And then I went home. I was a senior in college. I went home for the holidays that year. And my friend Corey, who I went to high school with, who was a big gamer, he had Gears of War. And I was playing it I didn't own an Xbox 360 ever. But my roommate at college had one. And then, so I was a little bit familiar with it. And then I sat down and played with him. And what I remember about it is being really bad at it and him getting mad that I was like fucking his stats up. And ever since then, I was like, oh, this is super cool. So when I got back to college, I looked and investigated into it, and I got into Gears a little bit. And Gears 3 was the last game I beat. And I want to say I did it at IGN. In fact, it was an exercise where like I was told to I played too many PlayStation games and I should play more Xbox games. So I was like, I'll play Gears 3. And then Gears 4, I did a sponsored stream for when it came out back in the day. So I played it for like 5 hours, but I never played it after that. So I'm really looking forward to this. Like there's no other than, I think this is what I really want. If this and Halo comes over, it's like, I don't really even care about anything else. I would like Rare Replay, to be honest. I really doubt that's going to happen, but that would be fucking sick. Because I would really love access to those games on PlayStation, but I'm amped up. Gears of War happening later this year. Now, something to add. I saw a more dubious source talking about this that I didn't know if it was trustworthy or not, but then I saw Jez Corden, friend of the show, talking about it, and so I'm happy to report on this now as well, based on his reporting, so I guess just relay the reporting, is that apparently the games will not include online multiplayer, but will include co-op, which that to me makes perfect sense. As long as Horde mode, and which is inherently co-op, and co-op like campaign is there, I don't think anyone's really going to give a shit. Who's going to play Gears of War online? Like, why would you even do that?
Yeah, I mean, it there is something to it. Is fun, but it's fun in the same way that like Uncharted multiplayer is fun, where it's just like I don't know if anybody's like necessarily like because the Uncharted collection didn't have multiplayer as far as I know.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, and people didn't seem to care. I do think Gears is like a little bit more well regarded on a multiplayer front than Uncharted is for sure, but it's not on the level of Halo where like you'd be stupid not to include that. But I'm a little concerned at the verbiage here because like obviously, yes, the story is going to be the primary showcase here. And co-op is a huge part of Gears. You got to have that. My concern is like, okay, so that's co-op campaign, or does that also mean Horde? Because Horde is technically multiplayer, according to like the original, like the way that they used to dole those things out, or the way that they used to segment those different, verticals off. So that's really my only concern, because are you going to have Gears 2 and 3 Horde mode in there? Is it going to be, you know what I mean? It's yeah. I'm concerned about that because Horde mode is good shit.
Yeah, it is.
It's like it's so. I lost an insane amount of hours to Gears of War 2 Horde mode. I can't even tell you, and I don't regret any of it. It was so fun. So I hope to God that at least like I don't care about the multiplayer, but like if they know what's good for them, Gears 2 Horde mode at the very least will be in there because that shit's it's so good.
It's all Cliffy B, dude. I mean,
yeah.
It's crazy how much shit he gets from people these days. It reminds me of Jaffe and the shit people get. It's like, you have no idea, man. Like how iconic Horde mode was. And like the entire premise of it. And the replayability of it. Gears of War was a pretty ubiquitous series. It wasn't as big as Halo, but I felt like it was taken more seriously in some way in like the hardcore space. as opposed to Halo being a more mass market game with hardcore, fans. Michael loves Gears. And I promised her that I would play those games together with her. Gears of War 1, I think, is like 4 hours long, 5 hours long. Gears 2, I don't really remember very well. Long. Gears 3, I've only played all of them once as well, so it would be interesting to go back in and play those again. So I'm really looking forward to this. Dustin, what do you have to say about this Gears of War? Were you a Gears person?
I was a Gears fan in terms of just campaign and horde mode. I was so bad at the multiplayer, and I was a Halo fanboy. So I appreciate it and would check it out. But for me, it was about campaign, co-op mode. Of course, I remember playing that specifically for Gears 1, playing the campaign co-op mode was a lot of fun. So getting all these together in a clean package, because I think right now I wanted to play through these and I was thinking I could play them on PC, but there's something where some of them aren't good or some of them they haven't remastered or something. I think
Gears 1's on PC. I don't think Gears 2 is.
Yeah. Gears 1 Ultimate Edition is on PC as far as I know.
Right.
But Gears 2 and 3 are not. I think there's a way to you could emulate them, I guess.
Yeah, Chris.
But there's no real way to play the original SKU of Gears of War 2 or Gears of War 3 natively on PC, which is annoying and has always been. But it looks like that's going to be rectified soon. So that's good shit. I'm excited about this, man. This is great shit. And I think it's smart because obviously that next game is a prequel. You want to get people invested. And I think it's smart what they're doing as far as like the multiplayer stuff too, because like if you want to have your next game, chances are like that might have multiplayer in it, and maybe you don't want to compete with yourself in that way. Split the player base. So it's interesting. I hope it's good. I hope they treat it well, and I hope it's not a bugged mess. Because that is possible.
Yeah, they have to treat it with care. I think that's kind of what's maybe taken so long. Maybe a more deliberate approach, appreciating what Gears is and understanding its legacy and importance. Second only to Halo, I would say, in terms of Xbox history. So from that perspective, it's for all of the games that have been rumored and we've discussed or whatever that are coming over, it's like, this is really fucking crazy. Although, as I noted, I remember seeing the Gears of War 3 footage more than 10 years ago of it running on, as I recall, it's the full playthrough of the game on PS3. Like it's running on PS3 button prompts, everything. And Epic, I think, acknowledged it at some point, like they had to, being like, yeah, we did this as like a project to see if we could. But it was clear that they were playing around with bringing it to PlayStation, and then Microsoft later on comes in and buys it. Because it was probably some sort of like 5 or 10 year contract or something like that. Very similar to the Death Stranding coming to Xbox serendipitously on the 5th anniversary of the game's release, as if that was a coincidence. So I don't know, man. Just from it's crazy. It's unbelievable. Gears was always one of the things that I coveted. Really, really the only thing of major consequence. Because even Halo, I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's a billion first-person shooters. There's not a billion third-person shooters. They're not. Like the third-person shooters that influenced Gears of War are so obvious because they're so blatant. Like a game like Kill Switch. Did you guys play that game back in the day?
Kill Switch, no.
That game was. I mean, I think Cliff, you talked about how that game was a major influence on Gears, and it's just like fine third-person shooting. That's why I loved The Division. It's like fine third-person shooting. I feel like is kind of rare. There's a wonkiness to a lot of third-person shooting, and so when you do it really well, and Gears does it in a way that I'm not like, I would prefer Vanquish, really fast and kind of weak enemies, but lots of them. Gears is like slow, plodding, and spongy. The amount of damage enemies take is like, oh my God. I've reloaded my gun 4 times. And also, is Gears of War the game that introduced active loading?
Yeah, the active reload where you have like time reload. I wish more games did that. There was a game in the last like couple of years that did that also, and I remember being like, this is great. Like I forgot how cool this was. I understand why it's not used more often, because it's not like it's a patented thing. because it is like more interesting. Like it's just great. It's almost a cheat code in some way where it's like it's a really easy way to just make your game feel more responsive and more dynamic than it otherwise would be.
Yeah, man. I'm excited for this. I'm really, really looking forward to this. So yeah. I hope it's true. I think the sources obviously has connections based on things that have happened already. And Jez talking about it, I think all but confirms it. I know I haven't checked if he's updated anything, but he was saying that he was digging into it to try to do maybe some sort of story or something deeper about what's going on with Gears. And then, of course, like there's those lingering games, Gears 4, Gears 5, and Judgment, plus like the pop game and Gears Tactics and all these things. I wonder what they're going to do with this stuff.
Tactics is great.
I wonder, like, this is what I was saying about Rare Replays. Like, are they going to really bring everything over, or is there like a delineation where it's like there's just no need to bring some of this stuff over, and maybe a lot of the Gears stuff just stays? But I would imagine if Gears of War is an easy multi-million seller, a Gears of War collection on PlayStation. So if you see that sort of thing, and then you're like, well, why wouldn't we just bring Gears 4, 5, Judgment? Like just. But again, if you're connecting it to E-Day as a prequel, you don't really need to do that. So. Maybe you slow down, you milk it a little bit more, you build up some excitement to this new game, and then you bring out the other ones later, and maybe a part 2 collection, very similar to what Konami did with Metal Gear. In fact,
yeah, I could see like that actually.
The Epic Collection, the Coalition Collection, you can even call them in some way if you wanted to.
Yeah, Gears 4 and 5 are pretty good. Gears 5 I actually think is really good. But specifically that DLC that they have for it, I think it's one of the best DLCs I've played for like a first party game in a while. Hive Busters, I think it's called. But they're really solid games. They're not like groundbreaking or anything, but that would be a cool like double volume collection. Maybe volume 1 even is what the Gears collection is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. That would be cool. Which would be exactly the Metal Gear naming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting times. Man,
I remember that's going to be the day, isn't it?
It's going to.
That's going to be the day, isn't it? Right? Like, yeah. I mean, like when we hear about this for sure, and it's going to be like, oh, come on.
I mean,
when are we getting the rest?
It's unthinkable. It's strange. I mean, these are strange times. Very strange.
Mega
historic.
Weird.
And I'm not saying historic in terms of like it matters. I'm saying it does matter, but I'm saying historic in terms of like an inflection point. Not unlike Sega, but different trajectories. Because Sega really licked its wounds for a generation or two. It was releasing things, but it wasn't prominent. Microsoft is incredibly prominent. And I'll tell you guys this. I reached out to people at Microsoft to see if I can talk to Phil Spencer on Sacred Plus, which I would really like to do. Specifically, like, let's talk from a PlayStation perspective. What are you guys learning about the PlayStation audience? Like, what attracts you to this place? What's working and what isn't working? I'm like, are you willing to talk like that? And I think that they're trying to figure out if that they would be willing to do it. I'm not confident, but they're very responsive, which I appreciate. Because I don't want access to games and products and shit, but I would like access to people. And so that would be pretty cool to get more into the mind of what they're doing. But yeah, this is these are crazy times and an inflection point for sure. And the fucking chainsaw gun.
The Lancer,
right? That's I always think about Squall in Final Fantasy VIII and how cool we thought his like gun sword was.
Yeah,
and then you see the Lancer and you're like, oh, that's fucking cool. You know,
it's so stupid cool. Like it is the dumbest cool thing that I've ever seen. It's
totally. It's like a super piece of technology in that it's totally functional. It's like, yeah, you would need something like this if you guys were like these brutish super soldier-esque dudes with these massive guns fighting these impenetrable enemies and you just chainsaw them to death. It's like, yeah, this is in some ways so crazy and yet so practical.
Yeah,
that's what I remember thinking about it.
Yeah. I love, yeah, man. Even just the audio design of that game. Of those games, whenever you get a headshot and you go, nice, and it's just like, this is good shit. I'm gonna be so excited to jump back into these.
All right, we'll wait to hear more from officially. Apparently, this will happen maybe in June. The real announcement. All right, number 2 want to give some shit. This is not a huge piece of news, but I want to give it some shine because I think this stuff's important. We were just talking about Evotinction, of course, from the China Hero Project. When we were recording last week's episode, PlayStation revealed the next 2 games in its ongoing India Hero Project. For the uninitiated, the India Hero Project is the 3rd so-called project of its kind. Dev funds incubated and controlled by Sony for the purposes of extracting interesting products out of locales and countries not necessarily known for console game development. We've talked extensively on our show about the China Hero Project, for instance, which has netted 7 releases total over the last few years, most recently the stealth title Evotinction, as I mentioned, in 2024, with 13 more currently in development. The most prominent of those, undoubtedly Lost Soul Aside, which launches in just a couple of months after a protracted 10-year development cycle. Well, the second Hero Project Sony spooled up is for India, announced about a year ago with 5 initial games we discussed here on Sacred. Those games included an arcade racer called Meteora, the race against space-time, walking simulator Mukti, 2D action title Requital, Gates of Blood, and others. With 2 more entrants now revealed, that brings the total number of India Hero Project games to 7. Those titles are called Bloody Boots and Loco. Bloody Boots, developed by an Indian team called We Loadin', is described as, quote, a high-voltage third-person action-adventure game set in Cranktown, a dystopian entertainment hub powered by junk punk advancements in biotech. This town thrives on illegal gambling and savage acts and push the limits of morality and with twisted and chaotic activities, end quote. It will be coming to both PlayStation 5 and PC. Loco, on the other hand, and that's Lokko, is under development by a team called Appy Monkeys. I hear it like British, like Appy Monkeys, and is described as, quote, a unique cross-platform 3D platformer where fun meets creativity. Players can create and share their custom characters, enemies, levels, and tracks using an intuitive in-game editor, end quote. Cross-platform is perhaps the key term here, as this game is coming to PlayStation 5 and PC, and yes, also iOS, interestingly. Neither title has release dates. All we're waiting on now is word on what's happening with the 3rd Hero Project incubation program that's called the MENA Hero, which we discussed on the show, standing for Middle East North Africa. Revealed in late summer last year, MENA aims to bring PlayStation gamers titles from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt, Morocco, Jordan, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Tunisia, Algeria, and Iraq, though no games have yet to been announced. Sony's heavy investment into those territories follows on its investment into African gaming publisher Carry First, however, and indicates Sony considers globalizing its audience as being essential. I continue to think that this is really smart. And I know this is something that's kind of boring and that a lot of people don't talk about or consider, but I just think that like you're seeing the fruits. I think Black Myth, though it's not a China Hero Project, is one of the fruits. It's like Sony is being really aggressive in these burgeoning markets, and it's going to work. Black Myth's a great example, but it's going to work like that for one of the Hero Project games, I believe, too. Again, 7 from China Hero Project are already released, 13 more coming. This now brings India Hero Project to 7. We're learning more about MENA hopefully later this year and get some stuff out of there. Do you guys have anything you want to add to this? I don't expect that you have much that you want to talk about, but I think it's important to bring this stuff up because we have a global audience, yes, but I also have a global appetite for games. Like I'm sick in some sense of the same shit over and over again. It's good to get different people on board with console game development, and I love that Sony's spending money like this. So
yeah, this Bloody Boots game taking place in Cranktown. I'm wondering if that guy I bought the 3DS from.
Yeah, that's
he might be the mayor of Cranktown. Honestly,
that's fucking horrible. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing when I wrote that though, and I was like, maybe it's just me, but apparently it wasn't.
Oh no, no.
That game actually sounds cool. It sounds like maybe, I don't want to say GTA-ish, but like some sort of open world debauchery game, which would be kind of cool. The other one, Loco, I'm a little more skeptical of just because it's like user generated content is like Sony's been obsessed with this forever since Little Big Planet. I don't know. Like even remember Infamous 2 had like a real like UGC component to it, and like they've always been kind of chasing this in some way. I don't know that there's really any fruit to be born there.
Yeah, but there's a trailer for that one. You can see gameplay of it. The other one, no trailer.
There's just key art for it, I think, right now.
Yeah, just key art. It looks okay. Nothing crazy, but looks all right.
All right. Well, shout out to all of the India Hero Project studios. I wonder if there'll be more. I suspect there will be. And again, I want to really hear from the MENA Hero Project because it would be so interesting to see what is a Bahrainian game dev have to say. I don't know. Maybe the same shit we have to say, probably. But good to expose these people to wider markets. All right. Number 3, this is more of a PSA than anything else. Every once in a while, we talk about a beta occurring on PlayStation hardware, testing out OS and UI functionality, firmware updates, and other interesting stuff. Games too, of course. But it's long been mystifying to most how to even get involved with such opportunities, and indeed, doing so is scattershot between what's tested, how, where, and so on. Well, Sony is aiming to fix that problem with its so-called beta program at PlayStation, which is the full registered name for this new initiative. You can Google beta program at PlayStation to find the official website. When you do, you'll be invited to join this new program, quote, for the opportunity to be among the first to test participating games, console features, and more, end quote. The website teases far more, however, including playtesting games on both PS5 and PC, quote, to influence improvements before release day, end quote, and, quote, help Sony create incredible PlayStation experiences on PC, end quote. And participants will be able to test functionality not only on gaming hardware, but also on the PlayStation app, as well as on PlayStation.com itself. To be eligible to sign up and to potentially be accepted, you must have a valid PSN account in good standing. Quote, accounts with restrictions and violations may not be eligible for participation, end quote. You may likewise also obviously live in a valid territory that PSN works within, as well as meet certain age requirements. It's important to note that, quote, submitting the registration form allows you to be considered for participation, but it does not guarantee your selection for any beta tests, end quote. You will have to sign an NDA to participate, meaning you cannot talk about your experience, and not surprisingly, you will not be further compensated apart for the access you're granted. If you're selected, you will be emailed. What do you guys think of this? This seems smart. Are you going to sign up? I have no interest. I've never had any interest in doing this shit, but I know a lot of people do. And the beta tests are really important for the firmware updates, especially because they find shit all the time. And people are kind of putting their consoles out there to be busted in some sense.
Yeah, I've never heard stories of people installing PlayStation beta software and having major issues. I mean, years ago, I would install beta iOS software on my phone, like beta firmware, and always had a million issues just because I wanted to try out new features. And that kind of, from here on out, I'm like, dude, I am not doing that with a device I use regularly, not doing beta software. And also for us, I would imagine none of this stuff is NDA'd, but just in case that it is, I wouldn't want to sign up for that and then have it be weird talking on the show or something.
No, it is NDA. That's what it says here. It is NDA'd.
It is NDA.
You will sign an NDA to participate.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is at the end there. Yeah, no. So I don't want to be under an NDA, and I just, in the case that it makes your PlayStation not work, that's not ideal. Really for anyone, but especially for us, where it's like I want to be able to talk about things I'm playing. If my PlayStation's out, then that's a problem. So, but for people out there that want to try the cutting edge things, it's there for you to bust your console if you want. Probably won't happen, but it could.
All right. That's that. The beta program, again, you can just Google beta program at PlayStation. It'll bring you to the official website. You'll log in with your PSN account and go from there. You have to fill out like a questionnaire or something. I poked around a little bit, but yeah, I have no interest in doing it either, just because it's like, I'll get the final thing. It's like, why would I want to do this? Yeah, in some sense, but it is cool that games will be part of this, and I understand that the most. But even then, I'm like, I don't want to.
Well, like early access kind of thing.
Yeah, like if they're going to beta test, I guess first or second party stuff. But you'll again be under NDA. I guess that'll be cool. I think it's a little risky. Like people are more than willing to break their NDAs. I've learned that. Many times over the years. I don't know why they're so willing to do that, but they are. Like, I've never earnestly been in a program like that before, where it's like, oh, you're getting, I guess we have it with Patreon in some sense, but like, that's not NDA. It's just like, they're testing things on us. But I've never been in like a situation where it's like, oh, here's something early, but don't talk about it. It was always because I was a critic or something. So I don't know like how that goes, or like if it's really as serious as it seems, but I wouldn't break something like that. If you sign like a document, it's not that they would go after you, it's that they could. And you want that sort of Damocles hanging over your head? I don't know.
Yeah.
A little scary. Marco Bruno writes in and says, hi, CDC. The beta program is odd, right? Why wouldn't Sony just hire QA testers to make sure their unfinished games and apps are running smoothly? I feel like this is more of an optics thing to signal to people that they want their PC games to not launch like Lord of Ring Golem anymore. No, I don't think it's that. Like, I think this is smart. We were talking about this earlier about the Returnal paradox. PS5 is strange. And it seems like there's things about it that are broken for a lot of people that aren't broken for other people.
Yeah.
And we were just learning about this with new stuff too, with a Civ 7. So I think it's kind of cool that they are willing to do this. And like I said, there's a risk to balancing, exposing people to this stuff. And that's why I think tying yourself to PSN, they have your credit card information. Like, you're not really going to get away with it. If you leak footage, I'm sure your shit's watermarked and all of the rest. So, I mean, there's penalties to it, but I think they're willing to take those risks because I think it's actually important for them to really figure out shit is broken. And I do agree that there's only so much you can do. I've told the story about discovering how broken Dead Nation was on PS3 in ways that Housemarque never knew when it came out, because I had at IGN, Greg and I both had full friends lists on PSN, and Dead Nation wouldn't run for us, period. And they had no idea that was a problem. And it actually added, as I understand, or at least was one of the contributors to adding to certification, like basically spoofing a full PSN list, like a toggle, to see if that would crash your shit, with basically a bunch of made up names. So I think it's good that like you put things into just a bunch of different situations, because you can't, I don't believe you can test for everything. Clearly you can't, because everything's broken.
Yeah.
And I know that some companies release things and they're like, oh, it's a little fucking busted. But I don't know that companies earnestly release things that are like, this thing is broken as fuck. Because it's bad. It's like a bad thing to do. I think they learned that after the fact because they didn't test things properly. And this is part of that cycle. So that's that.
Yeah.
All right. This was the surprising news. I wrote this up. This is weird to me. Number 4. In a surprising piece of news, it's been revealed that one-time popular publisher Acclaim would be making a return, having gone bankrupt back in 2004, with all of its properties and other remaining assets liquidated at that time to pay back its creditors, thus raising the question what the entire point is. The official press release revealing this news describes the comeback as being orchestrated by, quote, a team of industry veterans, ellipsis, with a bold vision aimed at revitalizing the gaming landscape, end quote. Interestingly, the impetus for this move revolves around, quote, resurrecting and revitalizing Acclaim's beloved portfolio of classic IP enjoyed for years by millions of players, end quote, though it's unclear which games or IP they're referring to, as again, all relevant licenses have long since been sold. The revived label will be led by a man named Alex Joseph, founder and CEO of indie developer Graffiti Games and longtime consultant under the banner VIM Global Consulting. In an interview Joseph gave with industry site GamesBeat, he tells the website in part, quote, first and foremost, the new Acclaim is going to support indie developers and new original IP. It will provide all of the resources needed to bring the games to the widest possible audiences, end quote. GamesBeat itself says that publishing, funding, QA, localization, and more will be on the table. And as for those old Acclaim IP, Joseph told the site, quote, we'll take a look at rebooting games. Some of the IP is not going to be available, end quote. Acclaim, which was founded back in 1987 and headquartered on my home of Long Island, employed nearly 600 people when it went belly up more than 2 decades ago. But there was a time when the publisher wielded a significant amount of power in the games industry. It had a long-time relationship with developer Rare, publishing both of the Wizards and Warriors games on NES, as well as other bangers from the era, like the great NES port of the arcade shooter Tiger Healy and the cult classic DRPG Swords and Serpents, among others. It also wielded the defunct publisher label LJN. We brought up LJN recently, which itself published a ton of fare in the early 90s, including Marvel titles, Double Dragon ports, and licensed titles from The Simpsons, Bill and Ted, and more. And it was in that licensing space that they primarily thrived, with Terminator titles, WWF games, more Marvel stuff, The Addams Family, Alien, Predator, and more. They were also heavily into sports games, perhaps most prominently with NBA Jam, but also with the NFL license and more. They even handled the console publishing for the original few Mortal Kombat games. As the 90s rolled on, they continued to license new games, including reviving an old comic label for Turok the Dinosaur Hunter on N64 in 1997, the 1999 N64 action game Shadow Man, and a bunch of South Park stuff too. But by 2004, things started going very badly. As some older gamers might remember, Acclaim started to unravel when it lost its coveted license to the Major League Baseball, with the MLB claiming it wasn't paid royalties from recent titles. This started a cascading effect against the entity, which, when coupled with declining game sales, forced it into bankruptcy, with a fire sale of assets to occur thereafter. The Acclaim name itself was sold for $100,000, and some people might remember a so-called Acclaim Games briefly popping up during this time, which was technically a separate entity that itself died. While many of its sports licenses merely reverted back to its stakeholder, some random titles were of interest to other publishers. For some reason, THQ, which died just 8 years later, really wanted the IP for the obscure racing title Juiced, which was nearly done when the bankruptcy happened, and which it published the following year. Another now defunct studio, Crave, also grabbed a bunch of Acclaim, including the rights to Dave Mirra's BMXing games, the ATV franchise Quad Power Racing, and more. Throwback Entertainment, which quietly still exists, grabbed a bunch of stuff, including the 1997 N64 game Extreme G, the 1999 racer Revolt, the ugly 2003 platformer Vex. That game looks like I hated the art in that game. And a cult classic Dreamcast fighter, Fur Fighters, launched in 2000. They would later sell some of their more than 50 Acclaim IP to other entities as the years wore on. So anyway, don't expect much out of Acclaim. What do you think of this? This is kind of weird. What's the purpose of this? Acclaim doesn't own anything.
Yeah.
So the name, and by the way, the last time and really the only other time we saw something like this of prominence, it didn't work out too well. I mean, ask Embracer how that worked. Being like, we're bringing back a dead brand, THQ, and now we're going to start buying a bunch of shit that's not THQ to make a new THQ. I don't feel like this has a good possibility of working, but I hope it does. According to the interview, I think with GamesBeat, I was reading some stuff that they were talking about that they already have a relationship going with one developer. So I guess they have one game kind of spooled up. And the person that's running this Joseph guy Alex Joseph is seemingly independently wealthy. And I was reading Graffiti Games. He left Graffiti Games. They still exist, but he was apparently part of a major fundraiser for them. So he obviously has some skill, but I don't get it. I just don't understand this. Acclaim was a huge brand at one point. There's no doubt about it. I mean, unavoidably huge, but these things happen. And so anything you guys want to add here? Do you have any memories of it? Did you play any Acclaim games? I was thinking like Mortal Kombat. I had the SNES Mortal Kombat ports, and those were probably the most important Acclaim games that I really liked. So right. It wasn't like, because I wasn't much into I liked EA Sports, but I wasn't into like the random licensed sports stuff. BMX. I think they did BMX Triple X and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, that's not for me. But I wonder if any of their games pop out to you.
Yeah, I was looking and I was like, I can't think of, or I don't think if I've played some of these games, they're not dear to me in any way. And that's, what you were saying, Colin, about like, why? Is there anyone that's like, man, I was a big Acclaim fan back in the day, and now they're back. I'm so excited. You know what I mean? It's already weird that you're resurrecting a company and it's not really the same company anymore, but it's double weird if it's a company that no one seemingly cares about. You don't have the prestige factor that you're trying to bring back. It's just like, oh, it's that company they publish some of these games. It just doesn't make any sense to me either.
I agree. I mean, so the name was sold for $100,000 in 2004. So maybe the person held on to it and then sold it later at a premium. But even then, the name would be available cheaply. But wouldn't it just be easier to have it? Like, this is what I wondered about THQ and THQ Nordic back in the day. It's like, why would you want to stain your entity with the name of a bankrupt brand?
Yep.
Doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. You have the opportunity to make something new, and what you're making is new. So why saddle it to Acclaim? I don't, and even the games that I cared about, like, again, Midway was really the publisher of Mortal Kombat. Again, Acclaim was just handling the console ports. So it's like, they're not even that involved in that. It's like, it's just strange. Yeah. I don't know.
This might sound wild, but I actually think you would have more cachet bringing back LJN as a brand than Acclaim, because LJN at least has a little bit of a very small amount of meme potential around it because of like Angry Video Game Nerd constantly shitting on LJN as making the worst NES games. So now like it's a thing in the retro community. It's like, oh, LJN, ugh, gross. So to bring, I mean, I guess you wouldn't want to bring back a brand that's known for making terrible games, but at least people have some kind of connection to that.
Yeah, but then imagine like a new LJN game comes out and it slaps.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like how awesome would that be? I don't know. I feel like I don't really have much history with Acclaim, or at least not that I can think of actively. I know that they existed just because I've seen, like, I remember watching a lot of like reviews and all sorts of things like that from Acclaim games, but I couldn't even, if you didn't write them out like that, I don't know if I could have organically come up with anything that they did.
Yeah, you know? I would say the NBA Jam is almost certainly the most famous thing they ever did. But again, that's like sub-licensed, you know? And the NBA Jams, I mean, there's been NBA Jam revival since then. Like, that's the thing, is that these IP are not available. And I highly doubt the NFL, the MLB, and everyone else are going to want to work with you. So I just don't know where you go. It's just very weird. And I thought it was worth writing about or talking about. We did get a write in though, because there is a peculiar aspect to this too. Even more peculiar. Donut Suplex wrote in and said, "Hey CDC, did you guys see that Acclaim Entertainment is coming back from the dead? I gotta say, not only did I not expect this, but I also did not expect pro wrestler Jeff Jarrett to be one of the ones helping to resurrect it." So Jeff Jarrett, the wrestler, is like a major spokesperson for this new Acclaim brand. And I guess this is connected to Acclaim's very intimate relationship with WWF back in the day with some games. And I guess he was maybe involved in kind of promoting those back in the day. I don't know. Crazy world. Reading through the news circulation about his resurrection, I respect their vision in being a publisher, first and foremost with a goal to support indie development and new original IP. That's the most lucrative direction for them if done so responsibly. I also like that they are going to try and revisit some of Acclaim's older properties if they can. Obviously, a lot of those are tied to other companies. However, if we were to get some older Acclaim, more obscure IP back, I'd love that. Even ports of some older games brought to modern consoles or original games from Acclaim Comics, I think, would be awesome. Maybe revive the canceled 100 Bullets. Let's go. What are your thoughts? So though I looked this up because I forgot about this. I remembered that there was a 100 Bullets game. 100 Bullets is like a comic book. And what I remembered about it was I think Keanu Reeves was supposed to be the voice actor in it, to do the character in it, but that there were only screenshots released of this game, but it looked like a kind of stylized Grand Theft Auto clone. And it was like the major game that got caught up in the cancellation because there were, or the Acclaim's downfall, because there were certain games that ended up coming out later. There was that game Red Star. I don't know if you remember that action adventure game that was that Activision or Acclaim was originally supposed to release, and then it came out a couple years later. That was revolved in that too. So anyway, strange story, strange times. Welcome back, Acclaim. I don't know how that's going to go for them. I think the last thing the industry needs is another entity putting more games onto the market, but that's just my opinion. I think that's like literally like the industry needs that, like it needs a fucking hole in the head. So
yeah, that's another thing too. It's just like awkward timing.
It's like the worst timing.
It's terrible timing for it. This would be I feel like honestly this would be a bad idea even if the timing was amazing. So like the fact that the timing is terrible and the idea is kind of gasless is a little not great. I do have to say I have been transfixed. Back in my day, it was just normal fixed. I've been transfixed on this Vex gameplay. For a while. Like in the background of all of this, it is fucking ugly.
It's so I'll never forget seeing that game's box art and being like, what the fuck?
It's not so much the environments, but like, man, this character is genuinely one of the most disgusting characters I've ever seen. I hate him.
Yeah, I also hate him. Keep that far away from
him
from me. Yeah, kill him.
Don't give him his jacket.
Kick out Vex.
Kick Vex out. Get him out of here.
I forgot about the don't give him his jacket. That's from like the first time he ran. I think,
right? Yeah. Don't give him his jacket. Kick him out of here.
All right.
We tried to give him his jacket, and he did not. It's and jackets. It's crazy. They're so warm.
Shall we move into listener inquiries, my friends? Like, that's all we have for the news.
Let's do it.
6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on Patreon. Patreon.com/lastdaymedia. You've heard inquiries throughout the show. Just look for the post in the news feed each week for this show and all the other shows. Submit to that. I'll comb through them, and we'll talk with 6 more as we wrap up this show. Tim J. Weckworth, who sounds like a lawyer with a commercial on during daytime TV.
Tim J. Weckworth.
Gentlemen, my question is brief but important. What if GTA 6 isn't the industry pillar everyone expects it to be? I know this seems insane, but history has shown nothing lasts forever. It's been 12 years since the release of GTA 5. I would imagine many on the team who built GTA 5 from the ground up so many years ago are no longer with the studio. Hell, it has now been 5 years since the franchise's co-creator and lead writer Dan Harmon left the studio. It's not Dan Harmon.
I was reading ahead of time, and this would make Dan Harmon the most prolific writer in history, probably.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
to have made like, oh yeah, he did Community and like Rick and Morty and a bunch of other like iconic stuff. and also Grand Theft Auto 5.
You're thinking of Dan Houser.
Dan Houser, yeah.
We have seen franchise after franchise fail to live up to player expectations recently. Could this happen again with the most anticipated game of the decade? What say you, Sacred Crew? I think there's a zero, like, I guess there's no 0% chance. There's a reality where this happens, but it's like so unlikely. It's crazy unlikely. And there's multiple things that are unlikely. It's highly unlikely that GTA 6 isn't excellent because they have a high paid global team of thousands of people working on it for years. And you know it's serious because other than those Discord leaks, nothing's really leaked about it. It took like those literal leaks that walked away, and even that stuff was apparently years old by the time it walked away. So people are taking it very seriously, gun to the head fucking mentality, deep work, lots of money, $1 billion+ I assume on development. Seriously.
Yeah.
So there's no way. It would just be, I do think games are one of those things where if you throw money and time at them, I think you'll come out with a good. You throw good resources, talented people with lots of money and lots of time. It's hard for me to believe that it's not going to turn out great. And I think that would be true for almost any team with talent. It's just that Rockstar has an unusual advantage of just doing what it wants for as long as it takes, because the pre-orders for the game alone are going to pay for it. So is it possible it doesn't hit? I guess so. I doubt it. I mean, I just really doubt it. I think that the excitement for it is so high, and the potential player base is so high on GTA Online and GTA 5, and people are looking forward to it, that they're going to overlook whatever's wrong with it anyway, which is what I kind of think happened with GTA 5, as I prominently talked about when that game came to PS3 and took a lot of shit for it, where I was like, I don't think this game's as pretty as you're saying it is. I don't think this game runs as well as you're saying it does. Like, I think people are just really hyped up about it. Is that possible here? Yeah. I guess. But
yeah.
Well, that much is definitely...
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say that much is definitely, because it's definitely going to be, I would imagine this is a 30 frame game.
God, I hope not, but I think you're right. Maybe 40?
Yeah, maybe.
On Pro or something?
The little half measure. I don't know. That's just kind of Rockstar's MO, though, honestly. It's like, because I feel like Red Dead 2 was 30 when it launched. I mean, granted, they've only put out games in the span of time where there wasn't really that much of a choice, I guess. But like, now that there is, I really do feel like that game's going to be like so intense. I could see a reality where like maybe it doesn't hit in the way that people are expecting it to. Like maybe the story doesn't hit like they were expecting it to. But I think it's going to hit in ways that maybe people are not really prepared to predict. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like that that role play thing becomes like a crazy like sub level of the internet itself at some point. Like, I don't know, like, or something equivalent, like something that we're not necessarily focused on becomes like a key pillar of that game where we might not have been thinking about it before. But that game's going to be huge. Like, even if that game does suck, everybody's going to buy it because it's Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, you're not going to play Grand Theft Auto 6? Come on. Like, what are you doing? It's going to disrupt the market enough to really, really shake things up. But I doubt it's going to suck.
I think it's important too. Tim talks about it being 12 years since the release of GTA 5. And that's true. GTA 5 was the last Grand Theft Auto game, but you also have to consider Red Dead Redemption being Rockstar's last big game. And that game is amazing. One of the best games of all time. And certainly there's a lot of staff crossover from that game. And yeah, Dan Harmon may not be there anymore, but I don't know. It's tough with these types of people, like the well-known legendary instrumental people, because sometimes I get it that once that person's there, it's kind of like the magic's gone. But other times there's a lot of people that make this game, a lot of really, really talented people. And Dan Harmon is not the only one who made GTA 5.
I'm never gonna.
I can't stop now. It's too funny.
I'm never gonna not think about Dan Harmon in the writers' room of Grand Theft Auto now, or like Rockstar game. Yeah. It's an amazing image to conjure.
So I it's as Colin was saying. Of course, it's not a 0% chance. It's just so incredibly unlikely that it's bad.
All right. Osama bin Kirby wrote into us.
Oh. That's the last thing Chris hears when the sickness takes him.
Hello, Backstreet Boys B-side. I need some help with a problem. As you've seen on the news, the President of the United States has placed tariffs on Canadians. I happen to be Canadian, and I am a bit upset that the US, which has left me disillusioned with the American people. This has affected my gaming habits. As two games I'm excited for, Forza Horizon 5 and Days Gone Remastered, are made or in part made by Americans. I don't want to support American products to the best of my ability, but I'm having trouble with trying to stick to my word. With Days Gone, I can maybe get away with it since Sony is Japanese, but with Forza, it makes my stomach curl. What should I do? Do I be in solidarity as much as I can with my Canadian brethren, or do I get these products with the thought of disrespect in my head as I play these games? Would that be disrespectful to the people who made these titles? Anyway, thank you, boys, for the response, and keep it up. I still like you guys, even if you are American. And Chris. Thank you. Chris is American.
Mm-hmm. Ostensibly.
Yeah. Kind of. So, this is a big thing right now. And we talked about this a little last week, but like, we're losing a lot of people on Patreon because of this. And I said last week, and I mean it to this day, it's like, I get it. Like, I totally get it. What you have to decide is like, in what level of solidarity do you want to stand for your people, and like, how strict do you want to be about it? So, like I said, I think we're low hanging fruit and easily exposed to this sort of thing because it's not really a necessity. I think it's going to be harder to avoid those things if it's like electricity or oil or whatever, food stuffs and shit like that. So like, you have to kind of make your decisions that way. But I want to like I'm a little confused by your logic just in terms of the games you're choosing. Forza Horizon 5 was made by a British team. If you're talking about them being an American publisher, Microsoft, that's true. But Days Gone was made by an American team. And you're talking about the Japanese publisher making that okay. So I don't really know where you stand specifically with this, but I get the idea of like reciprocity or trying to reciprocate or make it painful for people on the other side. And as I said last week, like, I believe in protectionism, but I don't believe in just rampant or random protectionism. So the example I used is like, I think we should have tariffs on Mexico because of immigration, because of fentanyl, the drug cartels, all of those things. That makes perfect sense to me. I don't really and I'm not saying this just because it affects us. It's really how I really feel is like, I'm not really so sure I understand what we're doing to Canada. Like, I don't get it. So it's like, are there problems? Do we get tariffed on things we export to Canada? Yes. Is some of it unfair? Sure. Are there like 1,000 issues ahead of that? Yeah. So that's like where I'm at with it. It just seems so needless, and I feel bad about it for Canadians because I know it's going to affect them way more than it's going to affect us. So I get your level of solidarity, and I think you have to find what makes you comfortable. And if I were in your position, I would do the same thing. That's why I just don't begrudge you. Like, if the shoe was on the other foot, I would do it. And we try to do that, right? It's like why we don't sell Chinese merch. We try to like live by some sort of virtue, and you have to find your way there too. So I'm sorry that this is happening to you guys. It is my hope that it is temporary. And I mean, it is inherently temporary, but it is my hope that it is quickly solved with you. And we can get back to our normal exchange of goods and products in a fair way. But in the meantime, yeah, remember, Forza Horizon 5, if you care about the developer, Forza is the game to go with because it's made in Britain. If you care about the publisher, Days Gone is the game to go with because they're Japanese. That's my answer. Do you guys have anything you want to say about this?
I mostly am just in agreement with you, Colin, that I think from the perspective of a Canadian, it's like, man, eliminating anything that's tethered to an American product is going to be really tough. Especially when you get into these situations where you have an American developer, Japanese publisher, or vice versa, or whatever. So as with other things we've talked about with boycotts, you kind of just need to go with your gut and what feels right to you in this situation. So Yeah, we have lost quite a few people in the exit surveys, but you got to do what you got to do, and do what your conscience feels is right, and we respect that.
Yeah, it's not gonna, be the end of the world for us, for you guys to go for a while you figure things out and come back. And that's what a lot of people are saying is like, I'll be back like when things are better or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, it's sometimes hard things happen where it's like you don't want to see like people, your business lose money or your business shed audience or whatever. At the same time, you have to just be intellectually honest with yourself. Like, can you blame them? And if the answer is no, then you kind of have to roll with it, knowing that these programs are inherently painful in the short term for everybody, in hopes that it extracts whatever you're looking for. And that's what I was saying with Mexico. I completely get it. Like, it's out of control, like what's happened there. And with the cartels and the drug manufacturing and the illegal immigration, it's like, yeah, something's got to give there, but it's like, we don't have to do that to everyone. And that's kind of what bums me out about it. So, and I'm sorry to my Canadian friends. Stop booing the American anthem though at NHL games, because it's bothering a lot of people.
No, keep doing it.
Anything you want to add, Chris, before we move on?
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say at this point. It's just like, you know what? Let's pop the popcorn and see how things shake up. I think a lot of this stuff is really. I genuinely don't think. I think it's just straight up retarded, like what we're doing. Like, just I don't think there's any like intellectual basis for anything that we're doing. But chaos is the name of the game, I guess now, and so like whatever. This is what we chose, I guess, and so yeah, all right. Let's see how this crashes and burns and pushes all of our allies away. It's interesting.
I see the logic in some of the moves. I just don't see the logic in some of the other moves. And like, it doesn't seem like, I don't know what Canada can. Maybe I'm just ignorant, like on the situation where I'm like, I don't know what more Canada can really do.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about like, oh well, it's about the fentanyl crossing the border in Canada, and it's like there's literally like less than 2% of that is from Canada. It's like,
yeah, right, exactly. So it's just insane. Weird, because that's the important statistic. It's not because people are saying it's only 45 pounds or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's enough to kill millions of people, so that's not really good. But it's like percentage wise is like what you need to kind of focus in on. I feel that way even with we should have like some free trade with China has been a complete disaster for the United States. So I have no problem with tariffs with them, but I think even like these extra tariffs that we're doing to like be like, oh, the precursors for the fentanyl are coming from you. It's like, ultimately it lies with the responsibility of the people making and exporting the drugs, right? Like, we have to it is a public health crisis.
Sure.
Everyone knows someone that's like gone down because of fentanyl. I don't think people around the world realize how bad it is here. It's bad. Hundreds of thousands of people. It's the most common cause of death for people 18 to 34. That's nuts. So something's got to be done. But I just think you got to be really intentional. And this seems really personal. Like, yeah. And I don't really know why you'd want to do that to good neighbors. So that's where. So again, like, I'm sorry that this is happening to you guys. I get it. There's a funny meme going around, like a Reddit meme, like making fun of people on Reddit, where it's like they're complaining and talking about how they're cutting everything out that's American, but someone is like, not Reddit, right? And they're like, well, no, we got to still communicate. And it's like, yeah, exactly. So like, it's totally it's going to be very hard to extricate yourself from all things American. But I think you have to make moves where it matters and be disciplined. You can make it painful for sure, for all of us. But I think that what, unfortunately, the powers that be expect is that no matter how painful it is, it's going to be way worse for the other side. And it seems strange to me. So Osama bin Kirby, be well and stay safe. Uncharted Drake's Misfortune wrote in and said, hey, CDC, just want to check in on how everyone feels about their PS5 Pro purchase now that we've had a few months. Up until now, I haven't experienced anything drastically noticeable in terms of improved performance. I'm sorry. And I have been corrupted by the need to constantly look for even the smallest micro enhancements in any hardware game setting that I come across. However, If I was still playing on the base PS5 model now, I would be constantly asking myself, I wonder how much better this game experience would be if I had the Pro console. Thanks for being the best and most consistent podcast team in the world. Thank you, Uncharted Drake's Misfortune. I really do think it's about mileage. Like, what games are you playing? The reality is that since Pro has come out, I really have only played 1 or 2 games that would even really use the Pro in any meaningful way. So, and I will say for Silent Hill 2 Remake, it really made all the difference for me. Although I don't know if that's just from patching that would have made it better on PS5 as well. But I will say that the PS5 Pro version of the game, by the time I got to it over the holidays or right after the holidays, was great. So from that perspective, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. But I don't play enough AAA games, or at least haven't recently, to really see it. It's just the new PS5. It's just I turn it on and it's just the PS5 that exists now. So I really am not thinking about it. But the other thing I want to put out there is that because I'm an enthusiast, like no matter what it costs, I was going to buy it unless it was like crazy. So I'm not really judging it from that perspective because it's like it's one of those few FOMO things for me where it's like, I'm going to have this. So I want to throw that out there, that your mileage is going to vary. Chris, what's your experience been with your Pro so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same as you, where like it just kind of fades into the background now, where it's just like, this is just my PlayStation. I'm not really thinking about how much better it would be on base PS5 because I'm not playing on base PS5, so it's not really a consequence to me. But I do feel, I don't know, there is an inherent kind of underwhelming nature to hardware refreshes in the middle of the generation. I think the PS4 Pro is a little bit more substantial just because it was the first time we'd seen anything like that. And I think just generally, like, the difference was a little bit more substantial. You actually did get like 4K and things like that. So like there was something to be said there, but like I was already kind of happy with what we were getting on base PS5. There were just like a couple of examples of like maybe like Final Fantasy 16 not running that well, or, you know, Rebirth on performance mode looking kind of dingy. But outside of that, you know, I can't really say that I had that many issues with base PS5 in the first place. So for me, upgrading was more about like a future-proof thing where it's just like, all right, I might as well just prevent myself from running into any more, or not necessarily prevent myself from running into more, but like minimizing the amount of future Final Fantasy 16 Rebirth kind of, you know, interactions that I would have with future games. I might as well mitigate that now and just get this thing. Also, because we're on the show, and obviously we were always going to be marks for this machine anyway. So I feel like in some ways we're kind of a strange group of people to even get feedback on this from, because we were kind of locked in the first place. I feel like you're actually probably better off asking just normal consumers who have upgraded on like maybe like forums or something, because like we're from such a different world from your average player, I think, you know.
Dustin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So this is right along the lines with what Chris was saying, is that normally I would recommend that you shouldn't buy a product for what you want it to do for you in the future. You should look at what it's doing for you now. But with that being said, we bought PS5 Pro being on the show, and so far I was looking through my trophy list. There's like not a lot of big AAA stuff that I've played on PS5 so far since I got it. But I have experienced the benefits. Like it smoothed out the frame rate in Metaphor. It made the frame rate better in Final Fantasy 14 when I was playing Ninja Gaiden Black.
Metaphor I played. Oh yeah, so that's one.
Yeah,
that's one.
Which that's not even PS5 Pro enhanced. It's just getting the benefits from the extra horsepower. So passively, it's been nice and I enjoy it. But it's mainly about the big games coming up. Ghost of Yotei, Death Stranding 2. Things like that. And even Split Fiction, I know, has a PS5 Pro mode that is like a higher resolution. I'm assuming going to be minimal, but
Doom, I think, is going to benefit from the game.
Yeah, Doom will be big.
Pro.
I won't play it on Pro, but so yeah, coming up, there's going to be a lot of stuff that I'm going to be like, man, I'm glad I have this. And if you're in the same boat, then you might as well. I mean, it's one of those things where you could wait, but it's not going to get any cheaper. So if you have the money now and you really want one of these 4 future games, but always best practice to wait and make sure those pro modes feel like they offer you something that is necessary. Another point too as I was saying earlier, to my understanding, the PS5 Pro version of Monster Hunter Wilds much better in terms of frame rate. So I'm sure there's a lot of people benefiting from that currently.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like that's probably like the big thing that I've seen lately to really benefit.
It's unfortunate. Yeah. I don't think that you should have to get a Pro to get a consistent frame rate.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
If the game offers 60, you shouldn't need to buy a Pro to get 60 FPS consistently. Design the game so that, the base console can get 60 FPS consistently without, there's going to be some compromises, resolution, whatever. But I think that totally sucks that that's the case.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know. I'll say this. I don't know if I would have bought it if I wasn't doing a show where I was covering this stuff. Specifically at the price point. I do think the price point is kind of hilarious. Even if it is I understand it's justifiable because of XYZ, I get that. But as a consumer electronic, it's just $700 is pretty fucking steep. For what is ostensibly a very minimal, not necessarily minimal, but overall minimal improvement to the overall experience outside of very specific games that, are arguably just kind of poorly optimized in the first place. I don't know how I feel about that really.
I'm curious about the games from PlayStation Studios or other AAA games that it's not it's like the PS5 Pro support was baked in much earlier. So Death Stranding, Ghost of Yotei, are those going to be much more impressive, a much bigger difference on PS5 Pro than their PS5 counterparts, since it just had more time to make that functionality?
Yeah, I mean, one would hope, I guess.
You would hope, but
yeah,
who knows?
I would have to imagine that that's true.
I'm looking here. I just got kind of distracted on looking for, you were talking about optimizing games to run better. Didn't Call of Duty run at 60 frames on PS3?
Yeah.
So it's I
really don't know how they did. I really don't know how they did that. Honestly, even back then, that was kind of. I remember I used to think there was something wrong with it, or there was something weird with it, or I couldn't because there were so few 60 frame games back then.
I think the Xbox 360 ports were all better than the PS3 ports that generation.
That's because of the what is it, the cell architecture, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. All right. Connor Bright wrote into us, said, "Hello, SS crew. I purchased the Midnight Black PlayStation Portal, and wow, is this device amazing. I told you. The latency in my home is very low, and I can even play some great turn-based games remotely during my lunch break at work, shipping through Persona 3 Reload. I have a significant gripe with this machine, though. It has no Bluetooth support for headphones, opting for a headphone jack and the PS Pair functionality for PlayStation headsets and earbuds. While not as bad, it feels like another Vita memory card style choice on their part. Why can't Sony help themselves from forcing proprietary tech into their handhelds instead of just doing right by the consumer? I'll hang up and listen." I have no thoughts on this because I use a wired headset on Portal, and I like that personally. I don't know why, but I just am totally fine with it. So I don't even use the functionality anyway. But do you think this is something that's missing, Dustin, that should be rectified? Is it like a component that they just removed from it so they didn't have to pay for it, or is it something that's just would be all digital?
To my understanding is that their proprietary tech is it. Don't quote me on this. I believe it might be lossless audio instead of compressed. Now, is also much lower latency. So arguably, in theory, I've not used these myself. When you're using that proprietary tech in the Sony headphones, you're getting better audio and much lower latency between what you're seeing in the game and what you're hearing. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of Bluetooth headphones, is that they're vary in their quality and the different Bluetooth standards, which can have varying latencies. Mm-hmm. So that's something to consider, that they may have just been, if you're thinking good guy Sony, it's they wanted to make sure that when people use wireless headphones, they were getting a good experience. What's probably the case is just that they can sell you on their shit and make it proprietary. So I have had an instance with my Portal that I wanted to use my AirPods, but you just can't. There is an option for you that you can get a dongle
that you can plug into something like that, and it will Bluetooth connect to that dongle. Depending on your earbuds, though, you may experience some latency that is undesirable for this. So keep that in mind.
All right. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I guess it's about quality. Chris, what do you think about this? Do you think that they should be more willing to work with these wider technologies, or maybe go for the higher quality stuff at the exclusion of all else?
I don't know. Maybe I'm like, I've heard lossless audio before. Like I get it. I sure. But like, to me, I want to hear something, like I don't know if I necessarily care if I'm getting the absolute pinnacle of, I want to hear like every single fucking decibel of every, like, I don't know if I can. I just want to just let me experience at my convenience the things that I need to be hearing to enjoy this game, regardless. Like, give me the option of Bluetooth at least. Bluetooth is kind of a mystery to me. Like, I don't like, what is it? You know what? Like, who does somebody own it?
I don't know. Let me look. I think it might be a consortium thing. Like,
it's like a Blu-ray kind of thing, or
let me see.
Yeah,
let me see.
It's just a weird. It's such a ubiquitous thing that I know nothing about.
Bluetooth is a short-range wireless technology standard that is used for exchanging data between fixed and mobile devices over short distances and building personal area networks. Bluetooth is managed by the Bluetooth Special Interest Group, which has more than 35,000 member companies in the areas of telecommunication, computing, networking, and consumer electronics. The IEEE standardized Bluetooth. But that's not important. Yeah, so that's it. So the Bluetooth Special Interest Group is in Washington. Makes sense.
Yeah,
and
I don't know.
So promoter members: Ericsson, Intel, Nokia, Toshiba, Microsoft, Lenovo, Apple, and Google.
Oh, so it's Microsoft is there. Oh, fuck Bluetooth. Oh, I don't know. I can Bluetooth. I think I don't know. I would prefer to have the option for Bluetooth. Like, I get it. If I want to like go crazy and premium, like, let me do that, I guess. But I just think it's like a silly. I gotta tell you, if I had a machine that didn't let me pair Bluetooth headphones, but only had a headphone jack, I don't know if I would go out of my way to go, let me buy the proprietary earbuds for like a marked up price. I would be like, no, I'll simply listen to this on the speaker or use wired headphones.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've done.
Like, it's insane.
Okay.
In my opinion.
I agree. Braxton Wilkerson wrote in and said, "Hey guys, this one is for Colin, although I would love to hear everyone's take on it. I'm having an ethical dilemma regarding trophies. I enjoy getting the platinum for multiplayer games. Right now I'm working on Destiny 2. But for most online games, if you get all the trophies for one version, i.e. the PS5 version, and you boot up the PS4 version, most of the trophies will automatically pop. Now my question is this: is it wrong to get the extra platinum this way? I know your feelings on this regarding single player games, but if there's no way to replay a multiplayer game without, say, deleting your account, then is it wrong to cash in on the extra platinum? Thanks for all the amazing shows." In my opinion, like, there's no way for you to really avoid it. And so I don't think it's really your fault. I find it strange that they do that because in some sense, it's like, why wouldn't you want to encourage people to play the game again, stick with it? Instead, you're influencing them to like, just go download this version. You're not going to play it, but just pop the trophies. It seems counterproductive to me, but I understand why that happens. And since if you're transferring your name from Destiny 2 on PS4 to Destiny 2 on PS5 or whatever, then all those things are going to come with you. There's nothing you can really do to avoid it. I think it would be unreasonable to say like, you have to start a new game. Plus, trophies are so broken at this point that just do whatever you want. It's really about the individual game you're playing with yourself at this point.
Now, I think what he's speaking on though is that because he said he's working on the Destiny 2.
Yeah,
and I'm assuming that means for PS5. But what you could do is go back and download the PS4 version, which you don't have to do that if you're playing on PS5.
Right.
And then you get the trophies.
Right.
Reverse.
So yeah, going in reverse. Yeah. Then you're trying to do that. And so, yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I really only have Sound Shapes remains the only game I ever sent saves between to get trophies. And as people will remember, that gave you 3 platinums because it was PS3, PS4, and Vita. So I did that and it was fun because it was novel and everyone was doing it. It's like, this is kind of cool. At a time when trophies were way harder to get too. So it was like, this is kind of neat, but the novelty is long since gone. And I really do think it's what's so interesting about PSN profiles, because they like purge cheaters and like have a real clean leaderboard of people that are playing games, even if they're shitty games. It's like, it's about the game you're playing with other like-minded people and the game you're playing again with yourself. Ooh. Where like I'm not, I think people think I'm earning trophies as like an e-peen sort of thing. And it's like, oh, I get that perspective, but it's actually really is like,
just say?
Yeah, right.
E-peen?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that phrase before.
But on the other end is like, I really am just getting it because I enjoy the process and I like accumulating them for myself. I'm not really trying to compare myself to anyone else. So but some people are very much in it for the competition of other people and stuff like that. I remember that specifically with the chase for 1 million gamer score on Xbox, that there was like a competition, and people got there first and all the rest. I'm just not really in it for that reason. I also think that the leveling gets so crazy on PlayStation. I'm like level 470 or something. It takes so long. Like even platinum trophies will not get you to the next level. Like you have to, it's like, I just like doing it. So do what you want. If that's what makes you happy, do what you want. It was kind of what we were saying earlier, and people were right where I was saying, you know, with trophies, it's kind of shitty to be able to manipulate the game to get trophies. But then it's like, well, you've manipulated games to get trophies, haven't you? I mean, like I've dropped the difficulty to like beat the Valkyrie Queen, and done shit like that. And it's like when I platinumed a game recently, I like used like, you know, I moved around quicker than I should have just so I can like get the game done quicker and shit like that. It's like, yeah, maybe it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not a maybe. It doesn't really matter. But I enjoy it. And I like looking at the nature of people's trophies, like what they have and what they're trying to do. And I'm really into completion percentage now. Like getting that number of like average completion higher and higher. I think I'm like 44% or something right now. But there are people with like in the 90s or even the high 90s. And that's like crazy. And that's fun. All right. Tyler Stafford has the last inquiry, and he says, "What's up, Sacred Slits? I know Colin desperately wants a new Mega Man game, but that just isn't going to happen when you have Monster Hunter Wilds selling a whopping 8 million copies already. Mega Man just doesn't have that kind of audience to justify its continued existence in Capcom's financial world. What say you, Colin M?" Sure it does. I think what Capcom has done really well is balanced big and small. One of the great games last year easily was Kunitsugami, in my opinion. That game was fucking awesome. And that's a game Capcom really had no business making. And in fact, maybe didn't even really seem like they were willing to fund it without Microsoft helping them and getting it on Game Pass. But they did it. And Dead Rising is another great example. Like, I don't think Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered did very well, but I liked it and I platinumed it. And so for all of the Resident Evil releases and all the other things they're doing, and then with Monster Hunter, rather, I just think, of course, there's a place for a Mega Man game. And there's a place for a Mega Man game that sells millions of copies. Don't get it twisted. I don't think that a Mega Man game, like a great Mega Man game, is going to sell 8 million copies in 3 days. No. But Resident Evil doesn't sell 3 million copies or 8 million copies in 3 days. Some Resident Evil games don't sell 8 million copies, period. And yet we look at that as a vibrant series worth pursuing. So I'm not worried about this. In fact, I think this just makes it more likely that they're willing to spend more money and do it right. And we know it's happening. We know it's got to be happening. That's what's so exciting about it. Like, there's no way they're just sitting there being like, oh, we don't know what to do all of these years. I refuse to believe that that's true. I think that might have been true like before COVID, where they didn't really know what to do. But I think that something has certainly been spooled up. So when we'll see it, I don't know. Very exciting. I would love Mega Man 12, but I doubt that that's going to. If that's what we get, then I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed because I think they expect something AAA.
Yeah.
All right. Should we leave it there, my friends, and get out of here? Chris, how do you feel?
I mean, okay. I've definitely felt better,
Yeah, sure.
But I'm weathering it. I think I'm more or less at the tail I'm at the beginning of the tail end of this, I think. But
well, let's leave it there. And this is actually a somewhat just surprisingly short episode, considering all the news that was in there. But we kept it briefer. It's still almost 4 hours long. I don't know how brief that is, but Chris, goodbye to you. Be well.
I will.
Are you just gonna relax for the rest of the day?
Yeah. I'm just like I don't know. I've just been eating nothing but soup for the last like several days. So
what kind of soup?
I just keep it standard. I'm chicken noodle. I had some Italian wedding soup, which I love.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
But it's mainly like just standard like get well soon soup, you know.
Get well soon. We want you to get well.
What is that?
Is
that from something, or is that like
Seinfeld.
An actual?
It's Elaine for Mr. Pitt, I think. Right?
I think so. Yeah.
Stupid.
All right. Well, enjoy your soup and something more substantive, hopefully, in the hours to come.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully everything tastes weird. So like, I don't know. I don't know what I like anymore. Dude, I had wings just because I was like, on the day that I realized that like nothing tasted the same, I was just eating a bunch of random shit throughout the house just to see like what changed and like how. I had like a sour candy that like tasted salty. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I had really, really, really hot wings and I couldn't taste the hot at all. And they didn't burn or anything. I was like, this is insane. I feel like I'm kind of like I got like a superpower almost.
Well, there is like some bad strains like flus going around, and it sounds like you just have one of those.
Yeah, no, it definitely is one of those, and obviously turned into bronchitis, which sucks. But
bronchitis,
you know, that should be fine.
All right.
It just sucks to it's just I hate that my voice is just gone, or like it feels like, you know, weak. It's annoying.
Well, I'm confident you'll make it to episode 350.
Yeah.
And so we'll see you next week. Dustin, goodbye to you. Be well. Any plans for tonight, for the weekend? Anything happening?
I'm going to go out and try to pick up Split Fiction, play that with Holly. So that'll be nice. We had beautiful weather yesterday. And I said to Holly, we were out, and I said, Western PA, I'm out here and I don't even need a jacket, but tomorrow it could snow. Sure enough, there's snow on the ground today.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Lovely Western PA. But Colin, I wanted to ask you about something. I actually meant to ask you at the top of the show, but I was too excited to talk about my Gunner 3DS.
Yeah, sure.
I sent you a fight video last week. We haven't discussed it.
Oh yeah, that was a dramatic video.
I got to describe the fight video. It's these two guys. They're ready to square up. They start fighting. This big guy. As they're fighting, his pants slip. His ass is hanging out. He's got the other guy on the ground. There's a great guy commentating the fight. The guy with his ass out just shits mid-fight.
Oh, I love that video.
It's amazing. And I said this to you, Colin, I'm like, I don't know if you've seen this.
Oh, yeah.
And your only response was, that's certainly something.
Yes.
And I said, well, it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
You know, this fight here is, I don't know how to tell people to find it. It's out there. Search fight
poop.
You'll
poop
find
video.
you'll find it. You'll find it if you know where to. Dude, that video is insane.
I love it because the guy, it's when his ass is out and they're like, whoa, restart. Like they're trying to get him to restart the fight because his ass is out. But these guys are out for blood. Unfortunately, he didn't get blood though. He got
is that the one?
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if there's multiple. Like, is that the one where they're like, he shitted?
Yeah. They're like, they start making fun of him. Yeah, like they start definitely commentating.
That is brutal, man. Like I can't even imagine being in a situation. I've seen a lot of good fight videos lately. Have you seen? There's a Predator Hunter video that I saw recently that I'm sure you guys have seen because it's so outrageous. I think I sent it to Colin, but I don't think we've ever talked about it on the show. It's like this dude. They corner him in some store or whatever, and a guy behind him picks him up by his armpits, tosses him up in the air, and then somebody in front of him slaps him to the ground. And it is the craziest. The alley-oop. It is the craziest combo I've ever seen done on a real human person. It's outrageous.
Yeah, that is a fantastic. Those guys are. I can't believe those guys get. I don't condone that because it's like it's kind of vigilante shit, but it's like they do smack the shit out of these people. Like
it's getting crazy. Some of these ones, I feel like this is a new era of predator hunting where they're assaulting these guys and
it's like the fucking Coliseum.
It's
getting a little crazy
in some way. Like you have to be. These people, it's just so crazy how many people they catch and all the different kinds of people that do it. It's like, how do you not understand that there's a really material chance that you're going to get caught? How, like, this is a whole subgenre of things that we are we're waiting for you to do this. And you just fall into the trap for years.
and so many of them are like, I knew it.
Right. It's like,
or
of
like,
course you did.
Oh man, I knew it.
We're waiting. Some of them get caught 2 or 3 times. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
These people are just fucking. That's why it's like, I don't feel that bad for them because they're complete fucking degenerates taking advantage of the most vulnerable people in our society, which is horrible. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, the vigilante shit's a little crazy. At the same time, but this is what I'm saying. If they were smarter, they'd realize like, oh, now we're dealing like now on the spectrum of us getting caught is getting the shit kicked out of us.
Right.
And still, they still don't care. Like, okay, I mean, if that's what you want, Skeeter Jean's gonna fucking get you,
dude.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, on the other side, I don't know. I just think the internet's a really interesting place lately. Like, there's like all these great images of JD Vance with a baby's face.
Oh, dude, yeah. They're so good.
Really good.
They're so good.
Are people are collecting them now and like making like Pokemon card games out of them?
They're collecting them.
They're collecting my baby boy JD. Look at him, he's so swollen. Dude, there's one of him just sitting in front of Zelensky, where he's like, he's like this.
Yeah, he's like pointing,
and his face is just so puffed, but it looks like uncanny enough to be like that could be. I've seen this comment a lot, where like people are like, I genuinely forgot what JD Vance looks like. And for the first time I saw that, I was like, that's a funny idea. But then I've seen so much of these things now. It's like, I actually don't really remember quite exactly like what he's supposed to look like. Cause all I see are there's one that's great. It's like, if you Google 3D Vance, where it's just like him with like a big fat face and it's like the long hair and it's him rotating.
Yeah. I've seen that one. Yeah, that one's eyes follow you. Like follow your eyes. It's very creepy.
It gives him a bald spot too. It's so damn funny.
It's awesome.
It's not so bad.
No, the internet's funny. The internet's it taketh and it giveth.
Did you say thank you? So good.
All right, my friends. Shall we go?
Yeah,
let's go. Let's get the hell out of here. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. Appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed our episode of Sacred Symbols. Thank you for your support on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access, etc. Couldn't do it without you. laststandmedia.store for merch. I think we have new Sacred Symbol shirts, or at least imminently we will. So keep an eye out for that soon. Yeah. So because they definitely got delivered, so now we just have to process them and everything. So just give us a little time and we'll get those out. I know a lot of you are looking forward to those. So yeah, laststandmedia.store for merch. We'll see you next time for more. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.